Okay, good evening. Is everybody here? Council members are all here and ready to go. We're missing Amanda. So I can sit down. Good evening. Good to see you all. Wasn't it a great day in Canyon City today? Had people come down from Divide and they couldn't believe it here. So we charged them more. No, just kidding. But welcome to the March 18th, 2019 regular City Council meeting. It is 6 o'clock. That's the hour we're going to get going. We usually have an invocation. Do we have someone here to do the invocation? Yes, sir. Would you come up and do the invocation for us? Would you please rise?
Lord God, we thank you that you're here with us, that you're everywhere, that you don't separate spiritual from material, but you're a part of everything that we do, even if we don't see you. So we invite you to be a part of these proceedings tonight, that you'd bring peace, that you'd bring progress, that you'd bring hope, that you'd bring love, and you bring goodness to our city. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you would like to talk to council on an issue that is on the agenda, we would ask that you would fill out one of the forms at the back and bring it to our city clerk. Can you hear me? So, can you hear me now? If it's on the agendas are in the back and the forms are there. We'd like to have that. And then we'll bring you up to the podium to talk on your issue or that issue at the time when it's on the agenda. But prior to that, before we get into the council meeting, if you have something that is not on the agenda that you would like to just express or tell us about, maybe something that's going on in the town, please feel free to come up to the podium and give us your name and tell us what you have on your mind. I guess.
We forgot roll call.
You did that last week too. So we might start with some formality. Would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Cochran? Here. Councilmember Gonzalez? Here. Councilmember Hamrick?
Here.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Here. Councilmember
Meisner?
Here.
Councilmember Turner? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Smith? Here. Mayor Troutman?
Here. Okay. Ma'am, did you want to address on something that's not in the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I would like
Would you just come to and give us your name and tell us what you have in mind?
My name is Jenny Gencheva, and I'm the director of the Green Thumb Initiative. I am here with Brian Monahan and Jesse Samento, who are also from the organization. We are a newer nonprofit in Canyon City. We work with the local schools as well as the community as a whole to promote health and nutrition, fitness, as well as develop sites at the local school where kids can learn how to grow healthy food for themselves. We're part of STEAM education at the schools. We have two sites currently. One is at Canyon Exploratory School. The other one is at Canyon High School. And Brian will tell you a little bit about what we do. After which, we would like to introduce a new project to you that we developed together with the health department as well as the Canyon City Downtown Business Association.
Just to talk about the projects at the schools, at the high school, it's pretty amazing. They've involved quite a few tracks. They have intentions of putting the entire quad underneath glass to have a small production area for a greenhouse, but also a learning area so they can actually practice the science, technology, engineering, agriculture, and math. And then over at the exploratory school, they have a pretty cool little closet garden where they're growing cherry tomatoes, and Jesse's over there helping them also get ready for their outdoor season to begin, because they're going to have teachers and students who volunteer to continue to grow throughout the summer. And the idea at both spots would be the outdoor raised bed gardens is where folks in the neighborhood can come by and pick fresh vegetables. So you're going to have a early spring, like cold crop, a summer crop, and then also a fall crop. And ideally, if we can get these at all of, or just at some of the high schools across the city, it would be a source of fresh produce for the people who live in the neighborhoods.
Great. And you're already working with the high school on that?
Yes, sir.
Great. We have the information here. Were you also, Jenny, were you also going to talk at sometime to the city about doing plantings on areas that we have, or did you?
We would love to do Main Street Garden,
Okay.
and we've spoken with a couple of the Merchants Association on Main Street, and there is a very brief handout on there that kind of describes it. They're auto wicking beds, so the water would be underneath, the bed would soak it up, so there wouldn't be a lot of, I guess, interference with the folks on Main Street.
Yeah, I think I'd like to put that on a general government revision committee meeting, and then also have representatives from the Downtown Merchants Association to be here as well. So we'd like to maybe schedule that. It'd be interesting to talk about it.
Yes,
Okay?
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for handing this out. Okay. Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, let's move on to the exciting agenda. Any council member announcements or anything? Did you push your button, Ms. Smith?
I will.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Well, my first announcement is I want to congratulate our staff member, Ryan Stevens, for being selected to be the Grand Marshal for the Blossom Festival this coming May. And that's pretty exciting to have a staff member, especially a brand new staff member, selected.
Right.
So that really
That's
brings
great.
honor to our
Mhm.
City Hall. So congratulations to him. And Tuesday, March 26th at 6 p.m. at the Recreation Center, we're going to be talking about, at the Parks and Rec Center, we're going to be talking about a potential rec center. We're meeting with a lot more of our partnering groups and citizens committee on how we want to move forward with, as you know, we didn't get any bids for our survey for our surveying for potential voters. We still want to pursue getting that survey for potential voters, but that's going to push out our time frame a little bit longer. So I thought we'd go back to Citizens Committee and get a good plan moving forward.
And what time is that meeting?
6 p.m.
It's at 6?
On the 26th?
March is a Tuesday,
Okay.
March 26th. So you're welcome to attend. And also, Mayor, I will not be here on Wednesday for our general government meeting. Spring break, so I have a family outing.
Then, do you want me to appoint someone to run that for you, or?
Well, I think it's a vision committee, and so
It's a
that's
vision,
you
is it?
anyways.
Yeah, it's a vision committee,
I'm
yeah.
just- Yeah, so sorry to miss those title revisions.
That's, yeah, well, I feel terrible. Can we hook up, maybe get a phone link where you're at and talk about it?
No.
No, okay. So, anyone else? Okay. I'd like to put a plug in on the 20th at Coffee with the Cop, is 8:30 at, I believe it's at Muggs. Is that correct? Commander Hill?
Yes.
That's a great time to sit down and talk with the men and women that we protect us. And it's also a thank you for what they do, and we really do appreciate all of our officers. We are contemplating, of course, I'm going to be at Head Start, 9 o'clock on the 25th, and then we're contemplating a city-county meeting at 4 o'clock on the 25th as well, and the rec district on the 26th. And somewhere in there, I'm going to try to work the 28th. That should be about it for next week. Then there's some meeting on the 29th with TechStart. I think that's a regional meeting with TechStart, which I will be at as mayor. So, anyone else? Did I see someone waving a hand back there? Would you need? No, you need to come to the. No, you need to come to the microphone. Yep. Need your name.
Hi, my name's Mary Pat Sparks. I was just wondering, I turned in a sub to speak about something that's on the agenda. Did I miss that, my chance? I thought you were, I did not miss my chance. That'll come up later.
Are there any other questions you'd like to answer?
What?
Are there any other questions you'd like to answer? So you
No, I
may,
just wanted to get up here so John
Yeah.
could motion to
well,
me.
we'll take that off your time, so, no, I'm just kidding. Okay. All right. Let's move on. I would ask the city administrator to review the consent agenda.
Mayor and council, 7A would be approval of minutes for special city council meetings of February 7th, 14th, and 21st. Those are all related to the stormwater task force. And then a general government meeting of February the 6th. 7B would authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support for this Hotel St. Cloud for a History Colorado grant, which would be used to restore this grand historical building. It's a $200,000 grant for the foundation work, and it must be matched, which in this case, Unbridled would match that, but effectively the city has to be the sponsor for them to acquire this grant. 7C would authorize the mayor to sign a water service contract with Dave and Deborah Margos at 2944 Ute Street. 7D would authorize the city administrator to sign a professional service contract with Atkins for the US 50 access control plan that would evaluate existing access entry points to the highway and anticipate change between 1st and 15th Street. And the cost of this would be $152,050. This was unbudgeted, so this will require us to bring back on April the 1st a proposal for a series of unappropriated budgeting. We have a laundry list, Harry's last meeting, to bring you to clean that budget matter up. 7E would be award bid 7-19 for the purchase of 4 Ford Police all-wheel drive Interceptors to Pharisee Ford. We're thrilled with that. Pharisee Ford was able to beat out the state contract by a little over $600. The amount is for $185,623.68. It's rare when you can beat out a state bid, so having a local vendor beat the state bid is fantastic for both the taxpayer and certainly for the business. And it would authorize the transfer because, to be frank, this particular capital acquisition was underfunded. We went back to try to figure out what had happened. I think we've learned what had happened, but they only budgeted $157,000. It should have been budgeted for about $190,000. I think they missed the calculation on one. This was a 2020 model year, and so naturally there are additional price increases. As you know, models change about every 4 or 5 years, and this is one of those years. But we would request transferring $30,000 in lieu of purchasing 2 staff cars to put it towards the police pursuit. It's our highest priority is to get the patrol officers the best equipment available. We'll use the other $157,000 to match that. Any questions on that at this time? Jim?
Mr. Meissner.
You're listing it at 185.6?
Yes.
That's, what does that include? I mean, obviously, 4 wheels and a motor, but
That's a fully equipped police package. I think the chief wants to reserve about $3,000 for little nuances that they may want to apply to the vehicles, but that covers 99.9% of the cost.
so
these-
MTDs and those types of things get transferred?
Those are separate, yeah, those are separate. And for the first year, I should make it a point, we will not have the in-dash cameras in these vehicles because we want to move to the body cameras. They're more effective, and the chief has made that a priority. So these new cars will not have the dash cameras, unlike prior cars, because those officers will wear body cameras.
But what was your answer again on the MTDs?
That's a separate, that's not included in a normal purchase of the police package, yeah.
So
It's
we're
a
going to have to
different line
buy
item.
an additional 4 MTDs also? Mm-hmm. Do the
Or
existing?
take them out of existing vehicles. I don't know what the status is, but we should have, these 4 vehicles should be replacing vehicles. So I know we fully outfitted our fleet with MTDs, so assuming that we'll be transferring that equipment to the new vehicles.
We also had a discussion about the comparison of the cost per mile or whatever you're going to do of the new vehicles and the old vehicles.
Yeah, the
The previous
operating maintenance
information did not include depreciation, and you were going to get me that information?
I'll get you that. I apologize for not doing that already.
Any other questions? This is on the consent agenda.
I have my button pushed.
Oh, Ms. Gonzalez.
I was following the rules. So, on 7H,
7-8.
when it comes to the Golden Age Center,
Yes.
it seems like when we did our government agency funding, the discussion came up about nutritional services and how, and stop me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the nutritional services were covered through a grant or some kind of donation. My question is, why are they needing assistance with this right now?
Yeah, that was something that the county actually does pay for. It's through county funds, or UCOG, or maybe it's UCOG.
So they're asking for $15,000 towards.
Portion of that would go to the.
Why?
I have to ask them. All I received was their actual request. We're assuming that they don't have sufficient funding to cover this as part of their programming.
Because I recall we weren't allowed to have any of the money that we,
Well, that's community agency funding. This is general fund. But it does seem to be prudent that, especially with the new director and a lot of questions that we had beforehand when Jim Wiles was the director, that we need to have Liesl come here and talk to us and answer
Sure, we can
some of our
arrange that.
before we
questions.
move
Before
forward, I'd
we-
like to
yeah.
We
get
can arrange it.
some
We can just move this one. So I'll go back to start with 7F, but we'll remove
7H.
7H and bring that back on April the 1st. 7F would be award bid number 1619 for reconstruction of 2 miles of road in Temple Canyon Park and 1.7 miles of road at the Red Canyon Park to Morris Quality Earth Moving of Canyon City in the amount not to exceed $170,000. So that was basically right on our budget. 7G would be approving of a service order number for the submersible pump repairs that lift water from the Arkansas River to our water settling ponds to WTG Technologies in the amount of $15,077.42. This is in lieu of replacing the entire pump systems, which costs about $70,000. But apparently, water got into the actual mechanics of the pump, so it had to be broken apart and repaired. I think there's an itemization of the types of improvements that are scheduled. And then we'll move 7H to April the 1st.
Any other questions or corrections? Ms. Turner?
On the Mountain Park Road reconstruction, I see you've given us the miles that'll cover. Does that cover all of the roads in the mountain parks then that are within our property?
Really, from the basic road to the entry of the park area, the parking area, it's about 2 miles. And this also will deal not just with the road, but also culvert work and drainage.
So it does, it'll be a reconstruction of the total road on our property then? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Meisner?
My question is in regards to item D, and I've had some email communication with the administrator, but I just want to clarify. The opening letter mentions First Street, which I assume relates back to, what's MP? Okay. 278.0 in the opening letter. But the Atkins plan mentions 276.9, which I assume is backing that up to our original request.
That's correct.
So the opening letter is incorrect.
Correct.
Are there other places in that contract where it mentions where this is going to start?
It's in the scope that they bid on. So that's really just a function of me not changing that number when I updated the memo for council.
Mr. Meisner?
I realize we pulled item H, but am I understanding that the item H is for an additional monies on top of the original community funding that we did previous?
You originally budgeted $20,000 of the line item just for the Golden Age Center. They made a request for an additional 15, so we put the two matters together. But we've already budgeted, in the budget is $20,000. This is a supplemental request for the 15. So we'll bring that back to you on April 1st.
Thank you.
And at that time, we're going to ask the director to be here? Correct?
Yeah, and I think with details of how that money is going to be spent and why.
Okay. Ms. Smith, was that your comment, or do you want to go more?
No, I have a couple of
Yes,
questions
go ahead.
too. Also on 7D, do we have anyone from Atkins here? tonight?
Excuse me?
On 7D for the Atkins study, pedestrian crossing study, is anyone here?
No.
No.
No?
Adam, yeah.
So I don't know if it's prudent or not, but there's a couple of things I wanted to make sure as they proceed forward if this gets approved. And that is, I want to make sure that we pay particular attention to reaching out and understanding what happened in Durango with their medians, where their train location is too, because it sounded like there were some problems with that. We want to make sure we learn lessons from that.
Okay.
And I know Big Daddy's was an important one that we needed to pay particular attention to with the trucks going in. And also when it talked about reaching out to the businesses, that we want to make sure that it's certified mail invitations to those businesses to the open house to get their information. And on page 4, they talk about the previous studies that have been done that they're going to utilize, and I'd like to add the river corridor plan, because the 3rd Street crossing and that connection from the river corridor to downtown, I think, is an important part of that conversation, and hopefully they can incorporate some of that plan into that pedestrian crossing. And then
Okay.
I also have a question for 7F, and that's also about the Mountain Park reconstruction. And one of the reasons why the roads are so terrible there is because long time misunderstanding of who was responsible for it. We determined we are responsible after years and years of neglect, and would ask that we include this somewhere on a regular maintenance plan to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Anyone else?
How's that? Can't get it to work.
Mr. Meisner, are you?
Page 5, item 7. Well, no, I guess it isn't item 7. But under corridor uses, there's a sentence in there that, I don't know, it seems odd to me. It says, "This group may not attend public meetings or have direct contact with the project team." It's on page 5.
Are you talking about D, 7D? Okay.
I'm sorry, yes, I'm still on. Halfway through that sentence, or that paragraph,
Doesn't that refer to property owners outside the project limits? This group, property owners outside the project limits? As well as the other ones.
I know, but it groups residents and general visitors that come to Canyon to do business, and it says that those people cannot attend a public meeting. That just seems odd to me.
No, it says they may not.
Is that a directive or a statement?
That's a statement.
Perhaps an observation.
In other words, the project team's going to have to consider those people who may not come to the meeting.
They should have started that with a while this group, and then it would maybe made sense.
Ms. Smith?
Adam, I saw one more thing I wanted to add on 7D on the Atkins study, and that's on page 7. They talk about hotspots that they're going to pay particular attention to. I thought maybe we should add Constantino's property as a potential hotspot, since that could be turned into a parking lot / visitor center or something else that could create a lot more pedestrian traffic across Highway 50.
Sure.
Mr. Meisner?
Okay, on page 6, it makes reference to the first mile of the study and then the last 2 miles of the study. Which are those?
So the first mile is west of First Street?
Okay, and then the other one's 9th
Yeah.
Street?
15.
Anyone else?
Slow down, I think.
Well, while you're thumbing through there or fingering through there, I would like not to have happen with the other study, and I want regular discussions, conferences. I know it says somewhat in here with city council. I don't want to be part of that face in the crowd like everybody else. And I wanted to have conferences with them on a regular basis, just for city, maybe for city council, maybe not just for city council, but I didn't feel we did that the last time. We had conferences here for the general public to come in, but city council was not particularly informed like I thought they should have been. So, and I think it probably outlines it here, and that would be our call.
Yeah.
But I think that'd be fair enough.
Yeah, keep in mind, this is just a response to the
Sure.
RFP. The scope of work that we brought forward to you that, in addition to what Ms. Smith is asking for, is the scope that we're going to write into the contract, and that's what we included. And so, at some point here soon, the council should appoint 2 members to be part of the project team, so they'll be part of every single meeting.
Okay.
And then, yes, then we have the additional that you're talking about.
Okay. The other thing that concerns me a little bit, it's more an overview, a 30,000-foot one, is how comes it's only Atkins that ever bids on these? Is that, I'm
Well, this is the
concerned
first
about
time
that.
we've had Atkins bid on a traffic project. They've done a lot of stormwater work for us in the past. In fact, that's the only work that they've done for us, is stormwater work. And then they also did some work on a project for CDOT recently in town but they were CDOT's contractor for that.
Okay. I know I had seen their names before, but I just find it a little curious that it's just a small project. Don't they like working with Canyon City? Why do we only get one bid? Because
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good bid or not. I guess it's a bid.
I believe it is a good bid, or else I think we would have suggested that we extend the deadline for it. We were expecting around $175,000. I know that because of the last experience we had, some of the vendors were a little gun shy.
Okay. That's a good question, too. What if we just reject it after they do it? Are they going to get their feelings hurt or anything like that?
They might not bid on the next one, if we ever have one.
Yeah, but we're not rejecting the plan with the engineering firm. We're rejecting the bid. We're rejecting the agreement with the Department of Transportation.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's keep apples and apples.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Meisner. Anyone else? Shall we go forward then on any of the questions on the consent agenda? It is my understanding we'll need to have a motion at that time. This time we'll be pulling item H off of the consent agenda. Are there any,
We need to add an item, right?
are we going to add an item? What item would you be adding?
That's not on the consent agenda, though.
That's not consent agenda. What?
Talking about the resolution?
Consent agenda.
Yeah, that's not.
Okay,
consent
that's a
agenda.
resolution.
Discussion item.
We're going to do that after the zoning thing goes through.
But
Yes.
if we're modifying the agenda, we have to modify them both. If we're going to approve it,
No, this is just the consent agenda is what we're modifying.
okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to make a motion.
Go ahead, please.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda for March 18th, 2019, with the exception of item 7H.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Clarification?
Well, if we're going to do it in that manner, we need to clarify that we're removing item H, and we're then going to have to come back and approve the regular agenda.
Okay. I thought I could do that without asking.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go ahead with the consent agenda. The motions that out there are made and seconded. Any discussion on that? Clarification? Would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Cochran. Aye. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Councilmember Turner.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Aye.
Unanimously carried.
Okay, what we were talking about was on an item on the agenda, which we have as number 16, I would like to pull number 16 over to prior to item number 10, the business plan. So in order to, I'm sure a lot of people are here wanting to talk about that, but this will get rid of, go through the rezoning, the public hearing, and then we'll go on to item 16, which is the resolution on the red flag thing. Is that okay? Do we need to vote on that, you think? Or can I just call it as mayor?
You can certainly vote on it if you'd like, to motion to modify and approve the agenda.
Okay, well, if that's okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to modify. Does everyone understand the modification? We're going to pull item 16 up prior to the business plan discussion, which is item number 10. Mr. Hamrick.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I move that we approve the agenda with the provision of moving number 16, discussion of the red flag ordinance, to prior to number 10, the 2019 business plan.
Okay, everybody understand that? Second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Cochran, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Cochran?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Turner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Unanimously carried.
Okay, thank you. I would like to then open a public hearing to consider the change to the municipal code concerning rezoning certain real property within the city of Canyon City, 2800 Central Avenue. The southerly 231 feet of Lot 5, Block 41, Fruitland subdivision, except the southerly and westerly 21 feet for public road access. This is an introduction and first reading by title only of Ordinance 8, Series 2019, entitled, an ordinance rezoning certain real property within the city of Canyon City, Colorado. Patrick, would you like to go ahead and do a staff report?
Certainly. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The first of our public hearings this evening is a request to rezone the property located at 2800 Central Avenue to C General Commercial District. The subject property is a 1.39 acre parcel located at the northeast corner of Central Avenue and Field Avenue. Originally subdivided in 1982, the property is currently vacant and undeveloped. It has one access point to Central Avenue near the east end of the property. The site is dominated by native grasses on the southerly two-thirds of the property. The northerly one-third experiences a topological fall and contains native shrubs. It should be noted that Field Avenue, adjacent to this property, has been improved to its four-lane arterial configuration. Also, it should be noted that there was an attempt to rezone the subject property to commercial in 2011 by a different applicant. That request was withdrawn at the time. The subject property is currently zoned R3, high-density residential. R3 allows for up to 10 dwelling units per acre in density and up to 100 feet in building height if more than 9 dwelling units are to be situated in a single building. The property is bordered on the north and east by additional R3 zoning. The zoning to the south and west is R2 medium-density residential, which allows 4 to 8 dwelling units per acre. It has historically been developed as large lot, single-family residential, which does not preclude the possibility of re-subdivision at some of the lots in this area in the future to create additional residential lots. The applicant seeks to change the zoning on the subject property to C General Commercial District. At the moment, the applicant has not provided a site plan for future development, so we do not know to what use this property may be put should the zone change be permitted. Section 17.40 of the Canyon City Municipal Code governs how zoning amendments are to be considered and establishes 3 criteria against which any zone change request must be evaluated. As the staff report indicates, this rezoning request does not meet the standards for the first 2 criteria. The third criteria has to do with establishing a community-related use. Staff has interpreted this to speak to the creation of small-scale neighborhood-serving commercial nodes. Most communities incorporate some provision in their master plan to separate differing scales and focuses of commercial, from regional drawing to community drawing to neighborhood drawing commercial. Canyon City's master plan focuses only on the regional drawing commercial areas along Highway 50 and the community drawing areas along Main Street and South 9th. It is silent as to the consideration of smaller scale commercial areas. In situations where the master plan does not provide specific goals or policies to guide such land use decisions, staff will typically default to precedent for guidance. In 1998, the Whitney annexation at 15th Avenue and Central Avenue set a precedent for the establishment of neighborhood-serving commercial uses at prominent intersections. The smallest scale type of commercial generally has a trade area draw of 1 to 1.5 miles to encourage shorter trips and greater pedestrian opportunities to access these neighborhood commercial nodes. The radius from the Whitney annexation stops just short of Field Avenue. Like Central and 15th, Central and Field Avenues are also both arterials, creating an arterial-on-arterial intersection. Establishing a neighborhood-serving commercial node at Central and Field would provide convenient retail access for areas to the north, east, and immediately south of this location. However, staff believes that to make a neighborhood-serving commercial node at this location successful, it should use a more tailored version of the uses generally allowed in the C Commercial District as defined in Section 17.12.130 of the Canyon City Municipal Code. This is defined as the uses identified in the proposed ordinance number 8, series of 2019, and will be summarized later in the recommendation momentarily. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on this request on February 27, 2019. Findings of fact were cited at that time to confirm the city has proper jurisdiction to conduct a public hearing and act on the rezoning request. Following testimony from the applicant and after conducting the public hearing and considering their own deliberations, Planning Commission voted 5-2 to recommend council approve this rezoning request. The 2 members of the Planning Commission who voted against this motion did not put the reasons for doing so on the record at the time. And with that, staff and the Planning Commission recommend that council conduct a public hearing on the request to rezone the property located at 2800 Central Avenue to C General Commercial. Staff and the Planning Commission also recommend that council approve the request to rezone 2800 Central Avenue, subject to limiting the list of permitted uses to those of neighborhood-serving scale, specifically accessory buildings and uses, bakery, car wash, eating and drinking establishment, financial institution, food cart or truck subject to the requirements of Section 1720.125 of the Canyon City Municipal Code, gasoline station, personal services, professional offices, retail commercial use, wireless facilities subject to the requirements of Section 17.45.030, and with no conditional or special uses permitted, and all bulk and height restrictions as specified in Section 17.12.130, paragraph C of the Canyon City Municipal Code. These limitations are expressed in Ordinance Number 8, Series of 2019, for Council's consideration on first reading tonight. If approved, second reading would occur on April 1st, 2019. That would conclude the staff report. As always, I'm happy to answer any questions council may have. Present to speak on behalf of this project is the applicant, Mrs. Vicki Pullen.
Would you like to the staff or to the applicant? It's a pleasure of council. Could we have the applicant come up,
Yeah.
please? That's the preference of the mayor. Since I didn't hear anything.
I'm impressed.
Could you have your name and address, please?
Good evening. My name is Vicki Pullen. My address is 1045 Indiana Avenue in Canyon City. I am the applicant requesting the rezoning of the subject property from R3 to commercial. As of right now, I'm not developing anything on the site. The northeast area of Canyon City has grown a lot in the last 25 years. There are new schools, new housing subdivisions, mobile home parks, more pedestrian and vehicle traffic. There's a new subdivision going in at Reynolds just north of Elizabeth. However, new conveniences have not developed to accommodate the needs of that growth. City ordinance requires rezoning notice to property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. Although not required, I did go door to door to speak with the neighbors and address any concerns or questions. Some were home, some were not, and some of the input I received was increased traffic, excuse me, was a concern. Current traffic is a concern. City parks for kids and dogs would be nice. Convenience store would be nice to grab bread and milk, so they didn't have to drive clear down to Fremont Street or Walmart. I realize a few of the immediate neighbors want only residential zoning at this site or no growth at all. I'm not sure they understand that the current R3 zoning accommodates a 10-story apartment building or condos or another mobile home park or various other businesses allowed under special review. These could also create a lot more traffic than a small commercial facility. According to the county assessor's records, there are over 1,000 more residences to the northeast, between Orchard and Dozier, north of Central, all the way out to Red Canyon Road. These people have to use fields to access any roads going into town, to the highway, to any of the other facilities on Main Street, because there is no other access. Many of them are farmers and ranchers that want gas for their equipment. They pull trailers and other heavy equipment. They cannot fit into Country Corner at 15th and Central. They can't get onto Fremont Street at the gas stations to pull their equipment in there without blocking a lot of traffic. Regular-sized vehicles have a hard time getting into the Country Corner lot. Also, if you pull in to get gas, nobody can park. If you want to pull out from getting gas, you block traffic or you're backing into traffic. It's not safe. The property that I'm requesting a rezone on is a double arterial intersection, making commercial zoning the highest and best use. Any business that gets developed there will probably not increase traffic that much, as there is already a large established customer base that drives through that intersection daily. It's a huge attraction for any new businesses that might go into that location. Commercial zoning will allow for convenience stores, laundry facilities, beauty shops, medical facilities, as well as many other opportunities. New development will most likely have required sidewalk, curb, and gutter as part of their project, making the intersection safer for pedestrians and the kids walking to school. The size of the parcel, being only 1.3 acres, does not allow for a large commercial shopping center. In conclusion, there's many options for development, and there's already commercial zoning only 400 foot to the north at Field and Elizabeth. Times are changing, and so is our economy. Growth happens, development needs change as families and neighborhoods mature. Convenient amenities are necessary to attract and provide for new residents to our area. Without growth and change, Canyon City will not be able to keep up with the increased cost of maintaining our roads, schools, parks, and other area attractions. As cities decline, businesses fail, residents move, tourists stop coming. Change is necessary, and I hope you will approve the zone request. And I'd also like to thank Patrick and Adam again for their assistance on this.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Mr. Meisner?
Thank you. Are you comfortable with the permitted uses that are stated here on item 2A?
I am.
This is maybe directed at Patrick. Let's make the assumption that we make the zone change and the property is sold, then we have a new owner that comes in and wants a use that's not here. What happens then?
If they want a use that is not enumerated under this ordinance, they would have to come back and apply for an amendment to this ordinance, which would require hearings essentially processed as a zone change request before both Planning Commission and Council. And it would involve an ordinance with 2 readings before Council.
Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez?
So, my question is, do any of these categories fit into a storage unit?
many storage units are specifically exempted from the list of permitted uses. So that would not be an eligible use on this property if it's approved.
All right. To you, are you hoping to rezone it to maybe sell the property? Okay. So you
At
have-
least unless I run into a whole bunch of money and I just build it myself, but no, that's my intent.
So you have no intention of developing the property?
No.
You want to list it so that it's a commercial piece of
Correct.
property? Okay.
Mr. Rodriguez?
My question is going to be this. I mean, we're looking at a lot of things that potentially can go into the area, as mentioned. My concern is the impact on the traffic volume, on Central, Fields, and the entire area. Has any of this been taken into consideration with regards to that? Because, I mean, for instance, just if we rezone it, like it's there, and just almost one of the businesses that they potentially can go in there will automatically have increase of traffic flow. And then if you get one that's willing to come in, there's going to be another one. So my concern would be with regard to the traffic flow. And I don't have a problem with the way it's going to be rezoned as to business going in there. The only one that I don't really care for is the gas station, okay? Out in that location. I understand what you're talking about with regard to the gas station, the corner store, and all that other stuff. But that part there is the one that, I think, shouldn't be in that area located where it's at. I don't have a problem with the other ones, but has anything been done to look at traffic flow with regards to because it's going to be a big impact. So mainly Central, Fields, and then everything around it.
Sure. So strictly comparing zoning, it could be argued that it's a wash because of the high-density residential that could be there. When we look at the design of the roadways, we look at the peak hours, and the peak hours are already very high at this location just because of the school pickup and drop-off times. If you add a residential mix to that, you're actually just increasing those peak hours, where a commercial use may spread that traffic out throughout the day rather than have peaks. And as the applicant mentioned, a number of those people are already driving past this corner anyway on their way to similar types of uses. So really until we have a site plan, so we have a developer, that would be the time we drill down and look at the specific impact of that use and then look at mitigation based on the use that's provided at that time.
Ms. Smith?
I have two questions. Why, on option 3, why were these particular commercial uses selected as being allowed at this location, not others?
The attempt was to scale down all of the uses that are permitted in C commercial, and I believe one of the exhibit attachments in the staff report is the full text of the C commercial zone. The idea was to exclude those uses that tend to be either very big or require a lot of parking, might not fit on this property, might be more of a regional draw and therefore attract more traffic than potentially encourage people who already live in the area to use this. So the attempt was made to scale the available commercial down to something that's more of a neighborhood serving level.
Okay, and my second question is about the petition in the back as well. Can you expand a little bit more on who garnered these signatures and what was it for and what were the responses?
The property owner to the west of this property at the northwest corner of Field and Central is the one that appeared before Planning Commission and wanted to submit this petition. Because it wasn't properly filed before the meeting, what we did was take the petition and submit it to the city clerk to make sure that it was properly admitted for council's consideration. I believe that she is the one who went around and circulated and got the signatures on these petitions.
And is that the person who addressed the Planning Commission that says in the notes that they're concerned about property values?
Yes.
Or? Okay, so did they expound any more about other things that they had an argument in as far as the conversations they had with these pages of neighbors?
Well, there was this individual expressed a similar concern regarding traffic, concern regarding the design of Field Avenue in its current 4-lane configuration, the difficulty that they have in some days getting out of their own driveway. So all of these were sort of part and parcel of the issues you've heard previously as well.
And as the property owner, did you visit a lot of the same folks that were on this petition as well?
I did. There was only, I think we had 10 people that fell within the 300 feet. And I did talk to, or go to all their doors. Some of them weren't home. Ms. Benarski, she wasn't home. I did speak with her husband. I knew that she would have a problem with it. She doesn't want anything but residential, but that's why I said I don't think she understands residential could be a high-rise apartment. I don't know. I'd rather have a small gas station or beauty shop than I would a high-rise apartment building. So I don't know. She just didn't want growth. They moved out there to be in the country, and I think there was one other person that felt the same way, but they've been there for 20 years or something like that.
And is there anyone in the audience who's here to represent the opposition to this rezoning? Okay.
Ms. Gonzalez?
I don't have an off button, so Ashley asked me a question.
What? You don't have an off button?
I can't
Oh,
push
yeah.
my button.
Well, I'm the one with that power.
Yeah.
Okay, I just, you know, so.
You took all my control away.
Any other questions of the applicant or staff? I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. Thank you for coming forward.
Thank you.
And have call for a motion and a second. Ms. Turner?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 8, series of 2019 upon first reading.
Second?
Second, Ms. Gonzalez. Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Yes, ma'am? Okay, you, Mr. Meisner, what, you won, Mr. Meisner. Ms. Smith?
I was just going to ask if you're just doing it as a whole, or if you can do option 1, 2, or 3.
Don't confuse us.
Option 3 has the limited commercial uses that might reduce the amount of traffic. and
Yes, it
parking.
was a staff recommendation, so that's, yes. Option 3 would be part of my motion.
Okay, would you add that then to your motion, Ms. Turner? Okay, we are going to have that motion with the addition that the preference is for option number 3. Is that okay with Ms. Gonzalez? Thank you.
What's option 3?
Here,
With-
option 3, I think, refers to the planning
You're just,
commission.
yeah, you're just approving the ordinance.
Yes,
that's in front of you,
correct.
Just the
which
ordinance.
Represents
And
what
it
option number
contains
3
that.
is, yep.
Right, that restriction.
Yeah. Okay, we all clear?
That was, but I still have a question.
Okay, made and seconded. Any more discussion? Mr. Meisner?
Well, I don't have a problem and understand all the conceptual things, but it just concerns me that we have 3 pages of opposition, maybe just duly noted, that, is it 3 or 4 pages of opposition from people that don't really live real close to that development, and nobody seems to show up here. That concerns me a little bit. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Meisner. Any other comments? We are at the motion now. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Cochran?
Nay.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Nay.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Turner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to number 6, which is a public hearing. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing and put my glasses on.
16. 16.
9.
9.
What did I say?
6.
9. Well, I didn't have my glasses on. Gee. Okay, number 9, public hearing to consider a change to the municipal code concerning rezoning certain real property within the city of Canyon City, lots 5 and 6, block 10, and lot 8, block 9, and that parcel designated as Mount Pleasant, all in the Park Center subdivision, filing number 1, together with a half, 20 feet, of vacant East Cone Street on vacated East Cone Street, and the northerly and easterly boundaries of the Mount Pleasant parcel as vacated in document recorded November 13th, 1988 in Book 507 at page 287, introduction and first reading by title only of ordinance number 9, series 2019, entitled, an ordinance rezoning certain real property within the city of Canyon City, Colorado. Would you, Patrick, like to go from there?
I certainly would. Again, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Our second public hearing this evening also involves a rezoning request. This one is for a currently unaddressed parcel located in what would be the 2300 block of South Street, in an area where the South Street right-of-way would intersect the extension of Cone Avenue. The subject property is legally described as lots 8, block 9, and lots 5 and 6, block 10 of the Park Center Filing 1 subdivision. Collectively, these lots comprise 23.68 acres. The parcels are bisected east to west by the unbuilt portion of the South Street right-of-way and by an existing ditch. It is also bisected in part by the unbuilt section of Cone Avenue right-of-way, proceeding north from its current terminus at Leslie Lane. Lot 8, Block 9, and the westerly portion of Lots 5 and 6, Block 10, have a relatively even grade. The easterly portion of Lots 5 and 6 have an ephemeral wash located upon it. At present, other than the existing concrete-lined ditch, the subject property is vacant and undeveloped, and this appears to be the first attempt of any kind to develop this site. The subject property is currently zoned R2, medium-density residential. This zoning allows for single-family and duplex residential uses of 4 to 8 dwelling units per acre. The property is abutted by an undeveloped R3 high-density residential area to the north and northeast, and immediately east of this property is an area also zoned R2, which contains a single-family residence on an acreage lot. The balance of the area to the north is unincorporated Fremont County. The zoning to the south is primarily R1 and consists of single-family residences built as the Glenfield Meadows subdivision. The zoning west and southwest of this property is oriented towards mobile home uses. The larger portion is MH1, a mobile home park, while the smaller portion, directly to the west, is MH2, mobile home subdivision. These areas are fully built out for mobile home residential uses. Finally, west of the subject property and north of South Street is a city-owned park currently zoned OPR, Open Space Parks and Recreational. The applicant is seeking to rezone the subject property to OPR, Open Space Parks and Recreation. This is not simply to downzone the property so as to extinguish other development opportunities from occurring here. The applicant does have a particular use in mind in this case. As stated in the previous public hearing, Section 17.40 of the Canyon City Municipal Code governs how zoning amendments are to be considered and establishes 3 criteria against which zone change requests must be evaluated. Criteria 3 is applicable in this case because the applicant seeks not only to restrict this property from development for future human occupation, but also to establish a utility installation, which is administratively reviewed as a conditional use permit within the OPR zone. The applicant seeks to locate a community solar collection facility. This would be a community resource which would allow local customers of Black Hills Energy to purchase proportional ownership of the energy generated and use that to buy down their electricity rate. Under the administratively reviewed conditional use permit, the applicant is seeking to locate 2 solar panel arrays on either side of South Street, right-of-way. These arrays would be connected directly to the Black Hills Energy grid. Individual customers would not be running electrical lines to connect with these solar panels. The applicant is also seeking a vacation of the Cone Avenue right-of-way through the subject property. This vacation would allow the applicant to effectively slide the southerly panel array to the west and have it line up with the east-west dimensions of the northerly array. Access to both arrays would come from the unbuilt portion of South Street right-of-way. The applicant has indicated that it will be visited by maintenance staff only once every 2 to 3 months. The applicant has proposed a 7-foot-tall, quote, "stay tough," end quote, brand fabric fence around the perimeter of both arrays. Staff has spoken with the applicant about using a more opaque type of privacy fencing, but the applicant has resisted these suggestions, citing aesthetic and interior visibility concerns. And it should be noted that the existing ditch will not be disturbed or have its access prohibited, as it is preserved within its own easement. To access the northerly array, the applicant will have to bridge the ditch in a manner which is acceptable to the ditch maintenance company. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on this request on February 27, 2019. Findings of fact were cited at that time to confirm the city has the proper jurisdiction to conduct a public hearing and act upon the rezoning request. Following testimony from the applicant and after conducting a public hearing and considering their own deliberations, Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend council approve this rezoning request. And with that, staff and the Planning Commission recommend that council conduct a public hearing on the request to rezone the property located in the 2300 block of South Street to OPR, Open Space Parks and Recreation. Staff and the Planning Commission also recommend that council approve the request to rezone the 2300 block of South Street to OPR, Open Space Parks and Recreation, as expressed in Ordinance 9, Series of 2019, for council's consideration on first reading tonight. If approved, second reading would occur on April 1st, 2019. This would conclude staff's presentation. As always, I am happy to answer any questions council may have. Present to speak on behalf of this project is the applicant, Raphael Schiffman of Clean Energy Collective, and Angela Bellantoni of Environmental Alternatives.
Okay, I do have Jim Smith. You put into, would you like to speak on your behalf, or would you like your experts to go first? Okay. Ms. Bellantoni, would you care to approach and I forgot who your partner friend there. Raphael. Are you handing something out here? Are they coupons or for free Black Hills Energy? Is that what that is?
Excuse me?
Is that coupons for free Black Hills Energy?
They are here tonight if you want to talk to them about that.
You don't understand the word free, apparently, right?
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Since I know we're going to have a long evening, is there any possibility you could keep it fairly concise?
I can do that.
No, let's try that one then. Would you go ahead?
So Mayor and Council, thanks for having me. I actually went before this group on May 9th just to sort of introduce myself and introduce the project's concept, if you may recall. Since then, we've sort of been doing diligence, some of which I'll go into. So we're here tonight to actually propose the zone change that was originally introduced back in May. So just a quick introduction to community solar. Roofless solar is or community solar is an optimally located off-site solar facility that supplies renewable energy to the power grid. Black Hills Energy awarded Clean Energy Collective 2 megawatts of capacity at this specific location out of an unknown number of respondents. We had submitted 6 different sites. We don't know how many other bids/sites were submitted, so this was selected by Black Hills Energy as an optimal location. We've entered, Clean Energy Collective and Black Hills have entered into a power purchase agreement to provide electricity under the Utilities Community Solar Garden program. And we're proposing construction of the Community Solar Garden in Canyon City at a site leased from the Smith family, and rezoning to open space parks and recreation would be step 1 of that process. A little bit about CEC. We've been developing community solar gardens for 9 years. And we're active in 16 states, serving 33 utility partners. Currently, we have 102 megawatts online and a couple hundred more plus currently in construction and/or development. And we've sort of pioneered the model of delivering renewable energy through medium-scale facilities collectively owned by participating utility customers. So this specific garden, this program, participants in Fremont County or adjacent counties can receive on-bill credits which lower their electricity bills. Black Hills Energy releases 2.5 megawatts of capacity annually. And the programs have been very successful, generating pretty long wait lists. Canyon City has signed up for 40% of this project's capacity, and the remaining 15% is likely to be contracted, if not already. And just a couple of quick stats on community benefits. So the agreement that Canyon City is under would have a savings of $17,867 in the first year and a close to $1 million savings over 20 years. Same would go for Pueblo Community College. Posada Housing Authority is signed up for 5%, and there's as I mentioned, the available 15% as well. So pretty significant short and long-term benefits in terms of energy savings. So this is the Solar Garden location as mentioned in the staff report. Quick stats on the system. It's just under 2 megawatts DC as per the utilities program requirement, 1.7 megawatts AC, approximately 14 acres to develop the site, 5,600 plus solar panels, 35 50 kilowatt inverters. It's on the panels are mounted on a single access tracker. And if you're not familiar with single access trackers for mounting solar panels, what that means is that the panels will rotate throughout each day. Any glare created by the panels would go off to the northeast or the northwest. However, it would vary daily and annually because the panels are moving every 15 minutes. To date, we've received no complaints about glare from tracker systems. There's also energy data acquisition system, so we're monitoring what's going on with the system 24/7. 2 megawatts of capacity would produce electricity equal to the needs of approximately 400 homes. And again, development step 1 would be the request to rezone to open space, parks and recreation. So this is the proposed layout, and you'll note that this layout is a little bit different than the one you saw in the staff report. This is showing the desired layout with the vacation of the Cone Avenue right-of-way. So that's why there's a little bit of a difference between what's in the staff report and this, so you can take a look at both. But this is the proposed layout of the system. So development will have limited access and will be restricted with the, it's actually a 7-foot game fence. Operations and maintenance is on a regular basis, typically quarterly, and what that involves is 1 to 2 people in a pickup truck on site for usually about a day, doing any corrective maintenance that would be necessary. Owner information and contact are posted on the fence, and surrounding uses include residential, parks, and open space, and undeveloped lots as per the staff report. Again, we're proposing rezoning to open space, parks, and recreation to allow for this use. The Cone Avenue right-of-way vacation in exchange for Lot 6 will improve city stormwater mitigation opportunities. So just to touch on that for a moment, city staff has expressed a desire for Lot 6, which is on the eastern edge of the subject property, because we are looking to vacate the Cone Avenue right-of-way. The Smiths are on board with a no-cost, quote-unquote, sale of Lot 6 to the city to be used for future stormwater mitigation in exchange for the right-of-way, so that we could do a sort of an optimal layout and stay clear of that drainage area. To touch on Fruitland Ditch Crossing a little bit, we've been working with Fruitland Ditch Company to ensure their rights are not impacted by the project. We made initial contact with them in April of 2018. We will be entering into a crossing agreement with them, and under that crossing agreement, Fruitland Ditch Company must sign off on crossing criteria and conditions prior to construction. So the 30-foot easement, 15 feet on each side, is accounted for, and we have been in close contact with them. So to touch on the development sequence of events, step 1 is the zone change approval, which would happen at the second reading on April 1st. Step 2 would be the Cone Avenue right-of-way vacation, which would happen on its second reading on April 15th. And step 3 would be the conditional use permit. I put approximately 4/18. City staff has indicated within about two days after the steps 1 and 2 are approved, they'd be able to release the conditional use permit, which we submitted for at the same time we applied for the zone change. Step 4 is mobilization for construction. Right now, loosely based on lead time of long lead items, if we're able to move forward, we'd be able to begin construction in July, early July. Piers and foundations would be July 16th to April 1st. That's really the only heavy construction phase. August 1st, sorry. I'm not even sure what I said. April, sorry about that. I do that a lot, actually, confuse those 2 months. Moving right along. That is really the only heavy construction part where we're pounding piers into the ground. That's the only heavy construction phase of the project. Everything else is boots on the ground and handful of electricians, wiring, a little bit of trenching. So if neighbors are concerned about construction, the loud, possibly annoying construction would be for that 2-week period, and then the rest would be less invasive, so to speak. And then project inspection would be early September, and project completion would be early October if, assuming everything gets approved and goes forward. So, and a little bit more on operation and maintenance. As mentioned, it typically occurs on a quarterly basis. It's 1 to 2 people in a pickup truck for 1 to 2 days. So it's not going to there's not going to be long-term activity on the site. We perform inspection and corrective maintenance if needed. And the operations and maintenance contract has not been awarded, but we do look for local solar professionals who that would allow us a quick response time. So, we're keeping our eyes out for that contract. And contact information, again, is posted on the fence. If any neighbors see or hear or have a concern, they know how to reach us. This is a picture of our array in Holy Cross, for Holy Cross Energy in Carbondale. And that's a picture which would be typical of what these arrays look like. And then this is an array in Lake County, a little bit more of a close-up view. And this picture comes from that data acquisition system. Just, we have a camera on site, so we know what's going on. And one thing I also forgot to mention earlier is that this will be the 4th community solar garden that we've developed in the area with Black Hills. We have one in Crowley County, Otero County, and Pueblo. And so this will be the 4th, so we have quite a bit of experience with Black Hills and regionally developing these projects.
Okay, Ms. Cochran.
Just a quick question about how tall are those?
So when they're tilted as much as they can possibly tilt, and we haven't moved forward with the formal engineering, so I can't tell you exactly, but it's usually in the 5 to 7 foot range at the peak tilt.
Okay.
Ms. Gonzalez?
So I remember there was a presentation done a few months back. Is this the same company?
Yeah.
Now, when that was brought to us, I remember that there was some talk about this being available to adjacent communities, including Pueblo?
That is correct. So anyone within Fremont County or an adjacent county who's also a customer of Black Hills Energy can participate.
So the 40% that you've secured, are they Fremont County residents or?
So 40% is the city,
Okay.
is the actual city. Another 40% is Pueblo Community College, and then 5% is Posada Housing Authority. Mike, where are they located? In Pueblo, and then there's 15% with contracts out there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Meisner?
Maybe directed towards Patton. Adam, Cone Street currently stops right there at the beginning of Lot 5 and 6? Or where does it stop there?
It currently stops at Leslie Lane, which is a little bit further to the south than where this property is. Would it help if I put up a vicinity map?
No, there's one in here. I mean, there's nothing physically there now,
There is nothing physically north of Leslie Lane now,
or in that lot area.
in that lot area.
Any other questions? Any questions of the owner? Okay, thank you. And
Thank you.
we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Cochran?
Are there individuals who wish to speak, though?
Oh, that's right.
I don't have any here. I have Mr. and Mrs. Smith, that's it.
Okay.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on it? Okay, it's like a marriage. No, okay. Ms. Cochran? Oh, Mr. Smith, you almost lost it there. This is a tough group. Technically, the hearing is closed, so your comments are sort of
Hey,
off the record.
You know I can't hear out of one ear, and I'm pretty deaf in the other ear, so I didn't hear you. My name is Jim Smith, and I thank you for allowing me to speak, and I wish you had your top hat on. You look pretty good in that top hat when you were on TV. So.
That's
But
all
anyway,
we needed, right?
I've been, my wife and I, we've been talking with CEC for quite some time now, and we've been working with them. Well, I should say, we've been standing on the sideline and letting Raphael do all the work. And we're really looking forward to hoping to get this zoning changed so we can move forward with this project. We feel that it will help the city. It will help us, obviously, but I think everyone, Black Hills, everyone involved in this is going to benefit from it. When you saw the one slide where the solar array, you could see on Lot 5 and 6 that Lot 6, which we are willing to deed over to the city, is right north of the subdivision that is, well, it's just north of that one subdivision, I should put it that way. Leslie Lane is down the road a little ways. But that would be an ideal location for stormwater abatement, and I think you might be aware of that one section, Preston.
I do.
Where there was some work done there already.
Right.
And so, you know, we're willing to deed that over for in order to get the zoning or the right-of-way on Cone.
Okay.
But I really don't have anything else to say, but if I can answer any questions, I'd be glad to.
Okay.
I appreciate your time, and I thank you. Look
Thank
forward
you.
to this.
Yeah, since we did close the public hearing, the question times are over. And Ms. Cochran?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 9, series of 2019 on the first reading.
Second.
Ms. Jones, thank you. Second, any discussions on that motion? Would you call roll, please?
Councilmember
No,
Cochran.
no, sorry. I just had a late button pushed there.
It's just
Ms.
a
Smith.
really quick question, and that's to Adam. Are there any plans in the near future to use Lot 6 for stormwater abatement or projects, or?
Not in near future, but in our master planning, yes.
Okay. All right, I'm good.
Okay, I have officially sealed off your buttons. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Cochran. Aye. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Councilmember Turner.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Aye.
Unanimously carried.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, and Patrick has a bit of a bug, so are you done then, if you'd like to leave, or is there something else? Thank you, thank you.
You don't want to stay
We
and
hope
just
you
watch?
get better. Hope you're feeling better. So as agreed, we're going to move number 16, and number 16 states as follows. In response to Colorado House Bill 19-1177, consideration of an adoption by title only, resolution number 10, series 2019, entitled, "A Resolution of the City of Canyon City, Colorado, declaring Canyon City to be a Second Amendment preservation city." Who would be the staff? Would you, Mr. Administrator, want to address that, or Mr. Meisner, would you like to address it?
I think this is John's project.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think as many of us know, the House of Representatives here in Colorado has passed HB 1177. The Veterans Affairs Committee has reviewed it in the Senate.
And it passed.
They have passed it out with a couple of amendments. And it is now before the Budget Committee for final determination of final budget impact. The county, Fremont County, has come out passed an ordinance as a sanctuary county. And in passing that ordinance, what they did is they directed the sheriff, with the understanding and agreement of the sheriff, to not enforce under the provisions of this bill. I view this in a little bit different light, since the legislative process is ongoing, and feeling as strongly as I do for our Second Amendment rights as citizens of this country. I felt that the more proper course for this city council, if it so desires, would be to see to what extent we can participate in the legislative process. And to that end, not take a stand on enforcement of the bill. And I may have an amendment to the bill, to the ordinance that I have in front of us, or will put in front of us. So the idea would be to participate in the process, express to the Senate our disapproval of the bill in its current form, and put ourselves on the record. The bill as written essentially, in my view, kind of turns our justice system on its head. I've always heard, growing up in this country, that the reason that our judicial system is successful and works is because of the idea that we're willing to let 99 guilty people go so that one innocent person is not incarcerated. In my view, this bill turns that idea on its head and it essentially says it's better that 99 innocent citizens of this country lose Second Amendment rights so that one mentally ill person or one person who has domestic violence problems does not have access to a weapon. And I feel that those rather than allowing the abridgment of our Second Amendment rights, that is something that needs to be fixed in the bill. In addition, the bill as written provides that the initial complaint can be made, the respondent, the person who the emergency protective order is being sought against, in other words, the person that would lose their guns, does not have to be notified of the hearing, is not required to participate in the hearing. That's the temporary part of the emergency protection order. But on a court's finding at that stage, without the respondent being present, a citizen in this country can lose their ability to own and possess firearms. After the emergency hearing is held, then the hearing moves to a final emergency protective order stage, wherein the respondent is notified of that hearing, can attend. In the temporary emergency protective order, the standard of proof is essentially a preponderance of evidence. And what that means, that's the lowest standard that we have in terms of proving something in court. In other words, essentially 51% or 50.1%, however you want to look at it, of the evidence says that a particular fact is established. That's in the emergency part. In the hearing for the year-long emergency protection order, the standard then is shifted. The complainant no longer bears any responsibility for proving facts. The facts have already been proven to a court's satisfaction. The only way that you can not have your guns confiscated, as the respondent, the burden of proof shifts to you by clear and convincing evidence. And so this is to me, this really turns our justice system on its head. And so I would ask, and I would make a motion, perhaps we should have some discussion
Yes,
first.
we need some discussion. so.
Okay, discussion
Okay.
first.
There are 3 people that have put their names in. I'd like to call, in order that I received them, I think, Mary Pat Sparks? Is that you now? You did use some of your time already, you know. Okay, got
20
3 minutes?
seconds of it.
Put them on the clock.
Oh,
All
okay.
right.
All right. Hi, I'm Mary Pat Sparks, and I live at 119 East Circle Drive. Here to urge the council to pass the resolution declaring Canyon City to be a Second Amendment preservation city. Everything that Councilman Hamrick just said is right on point. I've read and reread this bill, and it, as he said, it allows law enforcement to forcibly take the firearms from a person who has committed no crime without due process. And I believe it masquerades as a mental health solution when no one, it doesn't even address the mental health issue. So I do urge you to pass this resolution. I do have one question. I was so pleased to, when the county commissioners passed their resolution declaring the county to be a Second Amendment sanctuary city. And I was wondering if you could explain to me what the difference is between that and declaring Canyon City to be a Second Amendment preservation city.
Mr. Hamrick, go ahead.
Well, my thoughts on that are that to do something in the affirmative rather than to jump on the bandwagon of opposing laws. Right now, this is not a law yet. There can be some process here. So my feeling was that it was better to be known as a Second Amendment preservation city rather than a sanctuary city.
Okay, all righty. Well, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mary Pat. Richard Gutierrez? Okay.
Hi. My name is Richard Gutierrez. I live at 175 Pauline Drive, Canyon City. I'm here to speak in opposition to this. And first of all, Mr. Hamrick, I'm not sure what your experience in dealing with mental health issues is. I have a master's degree in mental health counseling. I've worked with dangerously mentally ill offenders in the Seattle, Washington area, and have been presented with threats against my life in doing so a number of times. So I do see a reason to intervene when there is a moment of crisis, and this isn't taking away people's rights. It's there is an option for people to petition to get their weapons back. Secondly, I'd like to mention that it's my understanding that the City Council is a nonpartisan group, and this is obviously a partisan issue. And I would take question as to why it's even on discussion at the city level, and what gives the City Council the authority to recommend that the Chief of Police defy the laws as they may be written throughout the state process. Now, I agree that there is processes, and we also have courts to address those processes should they be deemed unconstitutional. It's typically not done at the City Council level as far as I understand it. As far as I'm concerned, I consider this to be dangerous, irresponsible, and reckless. And while we may weigh the question as to whether 99 people give up their rights so that one mentally ill person can be treated or whatever, however it was that you phrased it, you know, I think we also have to ask ourselves the question as to whether we're willing to have it on our conscience when 99 people lose their lives so that one person can have their gun. With that being said, I'd like to encourage you to either table this motion until another time when other opposition can be allowed to speak, or to reject it altogether.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. The next one was R.A. Bob Dewey.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Bob Dewey, and I come to you today as a citizen of Fremont County. I'm going to paraphrase from a letter to the editor that appears in today's Daily Record on page 4A. So if you want to go back and read the whole thing, it'll be there. I basically am in very opposition to the red flag bill, better known as House Bill 191177, entitled the Extreme Risk Protection Order. 1177 will ultimately affect all of the citizens of Colorado, but its passage will not make anyone feel any safer in Fremont County. It will actually hasten the process of taking away everyone's constitutional rights under the U.S. Constitution, specifically the Second Amendment right to bear arms, the Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable searches and seizures, and the 14th Amendment right to life, property, and liberty without due process. There are already existing Colorado statutes, Section 2781-111 and Section 2782-107, which currently provide for the emergency commitment of persons with violent mental health disorders, whether or not they are owners of guns, knives, automobiles, or other weapons, who pose a threat to themselves or to others. The problem is the courts today do not readily seek to commit individuals because it's basically not politically correct. On February 26th, the Fremont County Commissioners passed a resolution to declare Fremont County as a Second Amendment sanctuary county in direct defiance of House Bill 191177. The red flag bill has since been opposed by other counties in Colorado, Montezuma, Custer, Weld, and El Paso. Over a dozen additional counties are now considering passing the same type of legislation. I feel that Fremont County Commissioners Debbie Bell, Tim Payne, and Dwayne McFall should be commended for their farsightedness and their action to preserve the freedoms of the residents of Fremont County. In summary, I urge the Council of Canyon City City Council to pass and consider similar legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dewey. Timmy, are you awake?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council, and thank you for letting me speak. I'm Timmy Pearson. Do I need to give you my address?
No, you can keep it.
Okay, good. I'm a mental health clinician, and I just happened to past weekend be with Sheriff Reams and got an interesting perception from him and perspective about this bill. As a mental health clinician, and after listening to it this weekend, it will be incumbent upon everybody in the state of Colorado to prove to whomever may be coming up to you and saying you are emotionally unstable. It will become your job to prove that you are emotionally stable. And I am looking at what if the person is coming to you and calling you a person at risk or maybe doing harm to another person. What if that person is emotionally unstable and has the ability of law enforcement or the law on their side to say to you that you are emotionally unstable? There is nothing in this red flag bill that requires anybody to give you a mental health evaluation to determine if you're depressed, to determine if you're suicidal, or to determine if you have anger issues that are sufficient to say that you are going to be at risk for yourself or anyone else. It will become a difficult position for any one of us in this room if someone comes to you and says you are emotionally unstable. They can issue a search warrant. They can go into your house even if you're not there and look for your guns. I submit to you that any day of the week a person with or without a gun can kill. They can kill with a knife. They can kill you with their car. They can poison you. And I feel that we need to look at, as Fremont County commissioners did, the gravity of this, and that there are other counties that are stepping up and looking at the reality of what this is going to mean. I don't know how you're going to prove that you are sane or emotionally stable, because you go to a counselor, say, for example, and the person sees you and says to whomever is going to be enforcing this, well, this person is emotionally stable, and we feel that this person can have their gun back. The powers that be, whether it's law enforcement or the court, says, well, we don't agree with that, mental health evaluation. We want you to go to somebody else. Well, then they send you to somebody else. Maybe it's a court-appointed therapist for you to have that evaluation. Well, what if that therapist disagrees with the other therapist and that person is caught in between? How do you prove that you are emotionally stable?
Okay, Timmy.
So I just wanted to comment on that. It's a serious matter.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Turner?
Do we have anyone else who wanted to speak?
That's it.
Okay.
That's all that I have.
Um,
So we're open to council to just talk now. So, Ms. Turner?
Is Chief Harvey here this evening?
No, he's out of the state,
Okay.
but he's well aware of this legislation. I may
Yeah, I
be
would be interested to know his opinion on the resolution, because it directly affects him, and he's mentioned in the resolution.
Well, I think I've talked to John about that. I think John's prepared to strike that for some obvious.
Actually, the resolution we have in our packet does not mention him.
Okay, the prior one. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay.
There's one in the packet and one in the very back. Should have been attached to it. The back one is the one that mentions the chief, the one inside does not.
We do have some law enforcement representatives in the audience, though, including one of our.
Okay, I have other people that would like to talk this time from council. Are you having more comments, Ms. Turner?
I do. I mean,
Okay,
I
go
would
ahead.
have liked to hear from the chief, though.
Okay.
Well, let me start by saying that I myself am a gun owner. I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment, but I don't believe that there can be no limitations on our rights in the Second Amendment, same as the First Amendment. I think that this resolution is premature. The bill has not been enacted into law yet. I think the bill represents, or the resolution represents, overreach. The draft that I had ahead of time says that we should be involved in opposing the bill, not just in the city of Canyon City. I don't think council should be taking action and spending taxpayer money for things that aren't happening within city limits. I don't think that's appropriate. And I also think it's highly unusual that a governing body would be saying, we're not going to follow an enacted law. I just can't think of another situation where we would do this. It's really odd to me. If the bill as passed is unconstitutional, that's what we have a court system for. That's what it's in place for. And our state Supreme Court or the U.S. Supreme Court can tell us ultimately whether a bill is constitutional or not. I don't think that's for us to be deciding before a bill has even been passed. And that's the same for any law, no matter what the subject. There is due process in the bill as written now. There's also court-appointed counsel for the respondent, which I don't, that hasn't been made clear. But ultimately, when the mother of the next Adam Lanza comes to a court and says, my son is threatening to shoot school children, and I believe his gun should be taken away, and a judge, through that process and with court-appointed counsel, may agree and issue a protective order, I'm not going to be the one to say that judge is wrong and to say that we're not going to enforce a protective order. I think good conscience, couldn't do it, and I don't think this council should take that position either.
Ms. Cochran.
I would like to start off by saying I too am a gun owner. And I think we have a fabulous police department and wonderful officers who we entrust to enforce all of our laws here in Canyon City. I think it's inappropriate for the city government to put our police department in the middle, and I don't know that it's our place to get involved. I think we need to let them do the jobs that they were trained to do. And I think it's a slippery slope for us to determine as a city government which laws we're going to choose to enforce and not enforce. And that's all I have to say about that.
Ms. Jaquez?
I carried a gun for 27 years with my job at the Colorado State Patrol. And there's a lot of things in this bill that I don't like a lot of other people don't like. But like Mrs. Turner was saying, I think it's not our responsibility to determine whether this bill in its totality is constitutional or not. And the reason why I say that is, this is going to go back to the mental health situation. I would venture to say, in my 27 years with the State Patrol, I had my life threatened by someone that I was incarcerating or giving citation to them that they would kill me. Now, and I'm sure that there'll be people out there, and I realize some of them that said they would kill me were doing it out of frustration for what was happening to them, not in the sense that they were mentally off. I did have one individual through my whole entire career that threatened me that I truly believed. But the rest of them, it came with the job, okay? It doesn't mean that we don't need to help protect people, but I think we need to look at it in its totality. And I think this issue has to go to whether it starts off with the Colorado Supreme Court first and then the U.S. Supreme Court. I think it needs to go there so we can look at all of the aspects in this law that they can say this part is unconstitutional. And there are parts of it that they probably will, okay? But that needs to be challenged. It's not our job as a member of City Council to do that, okay? And I agree. We do have the right to bear arms, all right? And that was one of the decisions for my own reason. I still believe in that. But when I retired the gun, okay? And I don't have one because I don't feel that I need to have one, okay, for my own protection. I feel that we have the protection of our local officials, our local officers, and that's kind of their job. Grant you, I will protect myself and my family if I need to, okay? But I think this bill, as it's written, has a lot of faults in it. And there's no way that I can say as a member, even if I wasn't a member of city council, that I can say that I think we should go ahead and endorse this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to point out one other thing, a particular quirk in this bill. Once a temporary emergency protection order has been issued by a court, that is a finding based on the preponderance of the evidence that that a person is not mentally stable enough to own a weapon. Okay, when you buy a weapon on the 4473 form, one of the questions that is asked of you as an applicant to purchase a weapon is, have you been found by a court to be mentally unfit to hold a weapon? And so this is not just a temporary or a year-long order. This is a lifetime ban from a citizen ever holding a weapon again, unless you can use the court system, have that record expunged if you are successful at some point in overturning by clear and convincing evidence that you're not crazy. Otherwise, it's a lifetime ban.
Any other questions of council? Mr. Meisner.
I would like to maybe direct mine to our attorney, if possible.
Depends on
So-
your question.
I know you're excited about this. Assuming that we pass resolution, whatever it is, practically, what does that mean relative to an individual losing their weapon in the city of Canyon City?
So, I think, I'm not sure which resolution we're really discussing at the moment, so my question is going to be based on the last version that mentions the chief of police, because there is an issue, I think, that's important there. To answer your question regarding the effect of the resolution, this is not, this is a statement of opposition to legislation currently moving through the Colorado legislature. It is not a document where a court is going to look at it and determine how the law should be applied. The court's going to make its determination, if the law is passed, the court's going to make its determination based upon the law that's before it. This is a symbolic statement of the city council as to its position on the current legislation. That's how I view it. The only concern that I have is the expression, at least in the revised version, of directing the chief of police and presumably his officers to violate a court order. The way that the legislation's set up from a law enforcement perspective, there's a discretionary right to file a petition. Law enforcement's not mandated to file any petitions. But once a petition is filed and a court orders the removal of the guns, law enforcement needs to obey that court order, or the city needs to challenge that in court. Those are your options. And I'm concerned that the language in the revised resolution directs the chief of police to disregard those orders. Actively resist, I think, is the language that's used there. And that does concern me, that puts law enforcement in a very awkward situation, which can cause problems within the legal system until the law has been challenged and its constitutionality determined.
So we're actually, I guess this question for you and John and everybody else, which of the two resolutions are we to be considering? The first one or the second one?
Well, I think John himself said this, he recognizes this one at the end has some problems with it.
Correct.
To the police chief, so we're considering the one on the top.
To that
It's
end.
more of a symbolic message to the legislature in consideration of passing this bill.
But to that end, item number 2 on page 2 says, "The city council hereby pledges not to appropriate funds, resources, employees, or agencies to initiate unconstitutional seizures in the city, in Canyon City." Is that not fundamentally opposing or telling staff to not enforce HB 1911 if it were enacted?
No, I think it says you won't appropriate funds for presumably what would city council would determine as unconstitutional seizures under the law, which makes me a little uncomfortable because, like Councilmember Turner said, the method in determining whether something's unconstitutional does not happen in this room. That is determined elsewhere. But that does not necessarily mean law enforcement won't enforce the law. It just means funds won't be appropriated. Perhaps, for example, for the storage of weapons or something like that. I mean, I'm just kind of throwing things out there. I don't know how part of this resolution was adopted from a county resolution. The county setup is a little bit different, just structurally, and so some of that language is maybe not quite equatable to the city situation.
Okay, Mr. Hamrick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I believe we have a version control problem here, and I would, when we get to it, be talking about the first ordinance in our package, and if it would result in more support from council, I would be willing to strike number 2 from the ordinance.
Okay, Ms. Turner?
Oh, Councilman Meisner's question made me think of a question for you, Catherine. Let's say the bill passes and the city decides that the police department is not going to enforce the law. Would that expose our officers to a 1983 action by someone who's injured?
I don't think so. And the law at the very end kind of addresses liability about omissions to act. There is a court case that's somewhat similar. Obviously, it's not based on red flag legislation through the town of Castle Rock that went to the U.S. Supreme Court regarding the lack of enforcement for a restraining order. The husband violated a restraining order. He ended up murdering his 3 children. The woman brought a 1983 based upon her right under the restraining order to have it enforced. It was a due process claim. So I'm not sure there would ultimately be a successful claim, but that doesn't mean someone isn't going to bring one, and maybe bring one in a different way, on a different claim that perhaps could be successful.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, what I would wonder is the bill as written, the respondent would be given the opportunity to surrender the weapons in the first instance before a warrant would be issued, is how I understand it, I think. So,
yes.
yeah, if someone came to the police department and said, I'm here to surrender my weapons, and we said, we're not going to take them. Our city council has directed us not to take them, and then that person uses that weapon to injure someone, I mean, to me, that would be a pretty strong claim.
It could be, yeah. I mean, there's always that risk there.
Thank you.
Okay, see no more lights on here. I would like to conclude this very shortly, very quickly, because I have a note here asking for people to take a 5-minute necessity break. And I guess at this point, we've talked ourselves out, I hope.
Oh.
What?
Oh, I was just maybe going to suggest, can we table this until we hear from the chief?
Well,
Are we even taking action
really-
tonight? Or
Yeah,
is it
we-
just
Well,
discussion?
I think that there's kind of a time is of the essence, because Councilman Hamrick's intent is to send a message to the Senate, who is going to be hearing this soon. So
yes.
this is more of a symbolic message to the Senate who's considering voting for or against this bill.
Mr. Hamrick, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did sit down with the police chief last week and talked about this. His concern was being directed by council to disobey a direct court order. And so the first version that we have in our packet does not do that, does not direct him. I am willing to make a motion that we adopt resolution number 10, series 2019, striking number 2 under the now therefore clause.
Was that a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay, we're out of motion.
Can I say something between a second?
That
I
comes.
mean, I could support this concept of communicating to the legislature that we are not in support of the bill. But in order to do that, I would need to strike items 2, 3, and 4 and make it purely
Just one.
a stance of, we don't agree with the bill. But going beyond that and pledging this and saying we're not going to do that, and we're going to take legal action, I think Caitlin's position is correct. We need, unfortunately, for those of us that are opposed to the bill, we have to also let the system work, I think.
Okay.
So, if he would amend his motion to strike items 2, 3, and 4,
And see, I like having 4 in there. Just because it discusses mental illness, and it's really not saying we're going to do anything.
but the problem I have with number 4 is that it says that city council demands that the legislature cease. And we already know that when you start a statement like that, it usually does not have a really good effect on most bodies and people. We're not going to tell them what to do. But if we state our opposition, maybe one of those few people that are opposed to it, or that are on the fence right now, one of those people may see our letter and say, here's a body that's saying to reconsider this, and let's find another way of accomplishing what we need to do.
And it's
Okay.
addressed in the whereases, the mental illnesses.
Okay, we'll ask Mr. Hamrick to either withdraw your motion or go forward and redo your motion. Withdraw it and redo it, or
Yeah, do what he's comfortable with.
do what you're comfortable with, so we can vote up or down.
So, Mr. Mayor, I amend my motion that to pass Resolution Number 10, Series 2019, with the striking of, under the therefore, now therefore, striking number 2, the city council hereby pledges not to appropriate, et cetera, and number 3, the city council further commits to actively resist, but keeping 1 and 4.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Cochran. Thank you. Any discussions on that motion? Mr.
Mayor
Meisner?
and council, procedural-wise, can I not, at this point, make a motion to amend that motion?
Yes.
Mr. Meisner?
Mr. Mayor and council, I move to amend Mr. Hamrick's motion to delete item number 4
Okay. So,
under, now therefore.
okay, so we're striking 2, 3, and 4. That amendment to the motion has been made.
My amendment would only strike 4, and then we go back to his motion.
Okay. Ms. Smith?
Am I going to save my
Yes,
comments?
we have a second on Mr. Hamrick's motion, then you brought it into wanting taking 4 out.
I will second Councilman Meisner's
Okay,
amendment.
made and seconded. So we have 2 motions to vote on. One.
Mine.
It's all about you. All right, Ms. Smith.
I'm going to save my comments for later.
Okay. Are we done? Are we done?
Well,
with this?
I'm not going to comment on, I have a different comment than what Mr. Meisner's amended motion
Right.
is.
Let's vote on mine.
Let's go. Would you call a roll for something or other? Call a roll.
Councilmember Cochran.
Nay.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Remind me what we're voting on.
We're just taking out number 4.
So, hold,
Aye.
Just 1.
Aye.
4 or 1 through 4?
Just 4.
Just for,
just 4.
Oh,
This
just
is-
4?
this
Yeah.
is
At
the
this
amend-
point,
this is an
nay.
amendment to the motion.
Amendment to the amendment.
So nay.
I'm so confused.
So then we'll come back. and
No,
vote.
hold on.
Yes.
So Hamrick's motion is to strike 2 and 3. Meisner's motion is to, in addition to that, strike 4.
So,
You're just
We're
voting on
just
4.
voting on the amendment to strike 4 at this point.
aye.
Okay.
Oh,
Aye.
So I'm changing,
Aye.
yeah.
Okay, so can we start back at the top? Because
Please.
Councilmember Cochran.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick.
Nay.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Nay.
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Councilmember Turner.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, now we're going to go back and vote on the initial motion, which was to strike 2 and 3.
2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4.
We already struck.
4's already been struck. You only get 3 strikes here and you're out. Now, would you call a roll, please?
Dead horse, please.
Councilmember Cochran.
So this is, sorry,
To strike 2 and 3.
but it's basically,
For 2 and 3.
that's all we're voting on is striking.
No,
Okay.
we're approving the motion with
just one.
2, 3, and 4 struck.
Correct.
Okay. So nay.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Nay.
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Councilmember Turner.
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Now, would anybody like to take a necessity break but we're going to continue talking about the 2019 business plan, so if you do it in shifts, that's fine. I'm not going to stop the hearing just for people to go to the restroom. We'll be here all night. Okay. You've heard the plan before, Ms. Gonzalez.
I do have a question, though. We have a number of people in the audience here that want to, I'm assuming, talk about the stormwater bid build process. I wonder if we want to change the,
Would council care to accommodate that at this time?
That's fine.
So we go ahead and do that. With that? All right. Let's
So
do
which-
that.
Which number are we on?
We're going to do number 12.
12.
All right. And we'll surprise Dolly when she comes back. Number 12, consideration and adoption by title only of resolution number 8, series 2019, option A or option B concerning certificates of participation for stormwater capital improvement projects, entitled Resolution A, a resolution of City Council by the City of Canyon City authorizing the use of design build project delivery for construction of the stormwater capital projects utilizing certificate of participation proceeds for years 2019 through 2021. Number B, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Canyon City directing the use of design bid build project delivery for construction of the stormwater capital projects utilizing certificate of participation proceeds for years 2019 through 2021. Could we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you. So with the recent decision to borrow money to make stormwater improvements, a large amount of stormwater improvements in a short period of time, given the cost of this project and the existing workload with the 2A street improvements, we feel it's prudent to consider the design build construction for these, the bulk of these stormwater projects over the typical design bid build. With the exception of the Dawson Ranch work. A fair amount of that work is ready to go. It's a simpler process and has to be spent in a shorter period of time. So with that, we want to go ahead and partner with Icon Engineering, who has already done the modeling work for the study that was completed recently. We'd just like to go ahead and directly contract with them and then put that work out to bid as soon as possible, as soon as the design is ready. But essentially, the design build would allow us to work faster, get the project delivered within the period of time more efficiently, we believe, than the design bid build, just due to a number of things that are involved in doing this when we're combining. We're talking about, especially on the 9th Street project, combining 2A stuff with water line replacement, the stormwater work, as well as a lot of utility, private utility relocation that'll have to take place, a fair amount of coordination with DOT, as well as the railroad also on all 3 projects that we're looking at doing. And so that combined with our recent experience with design build and the design bid build on cost and the competitiveness or the lack of competitiveness that we had intended to achieve in switching over to design bid build for 2A, we just think it'd be better to consider that option again. So with that, we've prepared 2 resolutions just looking for your direction tonight and how you'd like us to proceed, knowing that we have to do it soon. So option A is direction to use design build for the project delivery, and option B would be for the traditional design bid build process, similar to how we're delivering the 2A street projects currently.
Okay. Do we want to have council comments? We have Mr. Josh Airy. Would we want to hear from the audience first, or?
I have a clarification question first. That might be
Ms. Smith, go ahead.
Adam, is this resolution only addressing stormwater bids?
Yes.
It is in any way, shape, or form influence 2A monies being bidded for street reconstruction?
The one project that would be, we would combine the pavement, so the 2A money would be used for the replacement of the pavement for the stormwater project. That's
Just the pavement itself or the project itself?
yeah, just the
construction?
pavement itself. So we would just combine those dollars like we've been doing with the 2A, combining the drainage funds and the water funds to complete a project, even though they come out of separate funds. What we're proposing here is that we would bundle the 9th Street project, for example, all together with stormwater, water, and water. And water. And we would use those 3 funds. So that piece of the 9th Street project would be 2A, where the rest of the 2A money for those years would be spent as we've been directed currently.
So you're saying that for 9th Street, you would use 2A money as a DBB, or DB?
Correct.
Is what you're proposing?
Right, and then the balance of whatever, so we're not sure on the timing of this. We know it has to happen within 3 years. So it could happen as early as next summer, or it'd be the following summer when this project would be completed. And so the balance of the rest of the 2A dollars would continue to be designed and built under the design bid build process that you currently direct us to, unless you change your mind in the future.
Mr. Hamrick.
I think Councilwoman Smith stole my question a little bit. But so the answer is 2A money would be used for design build project within the city.
Correct.
But just 9th Street.
Yeah.
Correct. All right, and in the staff memo prepared by you, Adam, I guess, it mentions that, for example, the center line cost for 2A street improvements was $1.2 million under the design build, but $1.5 million under the DBB. Is that a true apples to apples comparison? My question is, wouldn't a better metric be dollars per square yard of surface placed?
I mean, we could calculate it out that way. I think you'd end up with a similar analysis, but we didn't build it that way.
Well, it seems to me that there can be a difference in how wide a street is, and so by going by centerline miles, you may not have an apples to apples comparison. I don't have the data in front of me, but that would be my concern.
Mr. Meisner?
John took part of my question, but to expand upon, I think it's inappropriate, and I'll direct this to council. I think it's inappropriate to compare a $5 million project, the cost per center lane mile or turtle mile, to a project that only involved 2 streets, and then to come back and say, this $5 million project was more cost-effective than these 2 small projects. I don't know how you can make that comparison in terms of which of those 2 processes is more cost-effective. The second question I have, and it's not a question, but it's in more direction to council. Staff and council have had a discussion about which bid process this particular body of government prefers. And this body of government directed staff to not use the design bid build process. And we are again in a situation where somewhere along the line, somebody has decided that staff processes and priorities should override what council has given them direction for. And I personally do not appreciate that.
Okay, no, that's enough. Any other comments?
I have my comments dealing with this as you are incorrect when you say this council didn't want that total design, okay? I voted against it. So maybe the majority wanted it, what we're talking about, but it wasn't the entire council. I want to make that clear, okay? And by what you're saying tonight, you're saying that the total council was in favor of going the other route versus this route. That's not true.
I said that
Majority
this
was.
council directed.
And by majority vote.
I
Okay.
still voted against that one.
Thank you. Ms. Gonzalez?
Jim stole part of my comment.
Sorry.
But what I'd like
Say it again.
what I'd like to ask is, are there local companies that you feel are capable of doing this kind of work?
Sure.
If we think about moving the other direction, it knocks our local contractors out of the market. You do realize that, right?
Nope.
Why?
I disagree with that. We've had a local contractor bid twice on a design bid build. Design build.
One?
Mm-hmm.
And did they win the bid?
Nope.
Okay, that's my point.
But they didn't win in the other option
Okay,
either.
all right. Where council's talking. Mr. Hamrick?
I have a question. The part of what we're kind of talking about around the edges here is our 2A money. And it's a question for Councilwoman Smith. I know what the language said in our ordinance that established our 2A fund, okay, that we would have an audit. And what we've told ourselves is what that audit will cover was the money used for streets and for streets only? That the 2A money, was that used for streets? Was that indeed what the result of the process that we went through on the 2A project? Was that the understanding of the committee, to your knowledge?
That the 2A funds would only be used for street reconstruction?
And that the audit would not look at other matters about, efficiencies of one particular process versus another?
It was only about using that money for street reconstruction and nothing else, not about efficiencies.
Thank you.
Mr. Meisner? Hurry up.
I'm going to just blame it on Dolly. She stole my thunder.
Okay, well, you're done? Good. What?
Till I remember what I was going to say.
Okay, well then, Josh Airy. Where's Josh Airy?
Yeah, we had a little miscommunication on filling the paper out.
Okay, you got 3 minutes.
So I'm John Airy, owner of Fremont Paving Ready Mix. Obviously, here to discuss this item with you, most specifically the memo in March 18th, last paragraph. I think that a couple of you councilmen are dead on in your questioning what staff has represented, which I see as a complete misrepresentation or an attempt to persuade the conversation. It's very clear that a centerline mile of road could cost $1 if it's 1 foot wide, and it might cost $1 million if it's 1,000 foot wide. I think it's pretty, I'm not sure what word you want to use, but it's pretty blatant misrepresentation when that's the kind of comparison we use. To the subject, no locals was used on those 2A jobs that was bid as complete and accurate statement. A week ago, we buried Bobby Beltramo, the owner of Beltramo Construction. Born and raised in Canyon City, funeral at the Catholic Church on College Avenue. I don't know how more local you got to be to qualify for whoever wrote this memo, but that's pretty local. Fields was done by Martin Marietta, partnered with us, Fremont Paving Ready Mix. We supplied all the concrete and all the asphalt, so I don't know how much more local you got to be to make this piece of paper. It's clear to me there's misrepresentation. It's very clear council gives staff direction of how the money was to be spent. And now here they are, a year later, coming in the back door with a new plan. I, for one, don't think it's appropriate. I sat on the small group of people who campaigned for this tax. And we campaigned for the tax for the local citizens of Canyon City, and there was discussion of making sure the money was spent like we said it was going to be spent. You forget, you got to turn right back around and go back out and ask for this tax to be extended if you want our streets to be fixed. I would suggest council and the people that sat on that committee do a little soul searching about what we told the taxpayers when we asked to get the tax passed. Other than that, I think that's all I got to say on the issue, and I hope council thinks it through before they make a decision.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Airy?
I think he locked up.
I did. You hesitated. You were lost. Go. Mr. Meisner. Thank you, Mr. Airy.
Yeah, I have no questions for Mr. Airy. I have a question or suggestion. If council is going to consider the design bid build process, we've got to change the way the process is reviewed and evaluated. That is where we ran into a problem last time with $1 million low bid, and the process that we used wound up determining that that bidder was not qualified. I think that we all agreed that that process was flawed. The concept of design build or design bid build may be good, but our process that we use to determine a winning bid is flawed. And I think that's what we agreed last time, is that we got to fix that if that's what we're going to do. I can't support that, but if you do, you need to fix that method.
Just a quick question. Meisner, aren't we currently doing the design bid build? That's what our, I think you're flip-flopping your terms.
Yeah, change that around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, for clarification.
Design build, right.
Okay. Any questions of council?
Do you have anyone else signed up to speak?
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, she doesn't have a button.
I did push my button.
Oh, sorry. Caitlin?
I just want to express my support for what Mr. Meisner just said. I mean, I was not on council when this decision was made last year about the design build project and the rejection and the plan to move to the design bid build process. But I remember having discussions throughout last year about why we disqualified our local bidder. And it was in part because we thought they had violated a rule that we did not put in the bid description. So if we're going to go back to design build, we have to make sure we're clear about what the expectations are, because we cannot hold our bidders accountable to something that we don't express to them. I think that was very unfair, and I don't want to be in that position again.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Anybody else?
Josh Airy wanted to speak, if Mayor finds it prudent.
Okay, come on up, Josh.
Josh Airy, I'm Fremont Paving Ready Mix. Thank you, council and staff, for letting me speak. I'd just like to point out that we are definitely in favor of design bid build. We do believe that the taxpayer receives the best bang for their buck. And I take issue with the memo in that as previously stated, that design build is cheaper. In the design bid build projects, both of the projects that were completed in 2018, I believe they both came in under the engineer's estimate. Again, we just want to make sure our position is for the design bid build, and we believe that that's the best way to conduct business.
Any questions, Mr. Airy?
What's your preference?
Design bid build. I guess.
What?
Sorry, another comment. I want to say the memo states it's the preferred it's a subjective statement that it's the preferred delivery method for residential streets or something along those lines. I'd like to ask what other counties or cities within Colorado are using design build for their resurfacing program, and maybe put some credibility to that, because at the Rocky Mountain Asphalt Conference and Convention, where many municipalities as well as counties get together and talk best way to deliver projects, and just how our industry delivers really the best product out there. Design build was really only talked about in projects in excess of 50 or 100 million, 200 million dollars. For instance, like the GAP or I-70 redesign. Those are the kind of caliber of projects that you would use design build and go through the RFP process, where you're really getting into the weeds. And to someone's point, Ms. Gonzalez, I believe, if you go design build, you really restrict the pool of candidates because of the overhead that it takes to put one of those proposals together, as well as the capabilities of the teams. A lot of the local contractors don't have the overhead, the staff. They're concrete guys, pipe guys, dirt guys, pavers, and they don't have a team of proposal writers and engineers that they can tap into, and it all comes at a significant cost that's really passed on directly to the community. Whereas we have an engineering department, and we could go to a third party and tap into somebody who does that for a living, who engineers roads and designs pavement sections, and then release it to the X amount of contractors that are capable of building that work. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other questions of council? Ms. Smith?
Adam, although I can understand that the DB delivery would relieve the burdens on staff because of the complexities of the 9th Street project and with the water lines and the stormwater, I also would like to say that I have confidence in you and your staff, and I would like to maintain the consistency of the status quo of the DBB for this process. And with that, I would like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 8, series of 2019 with the design bid build.
Second.
Second, Mr. Hamrick. Any discussion on that motion? Would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Cochran?
Nay.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Nay.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Turner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Okay.
Motion carried.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Okay, let's move on to number 10. Does anybody, have we satisfied the restroom breaks?
Yes.
Good, okay. Let's move on to number 10, 2000, thank you, Adam. 2019 business plan. Are you stretching within earshot?
Do you need a break?
Well, hip, hip, hooray. Mr. Administrator, would you comment on the 2019 business plan?
I'll be brief.
Thank
This will be
you.
the third year that we've presented a business plan to you. As you know, the business plan is a function of your strategic plan, which you have 6 priorities. This lays out operationally the tactics that we'll commit to this year to achieve progress towards those strategic priorities. Rather than walking through them, I would just ask if you have any amendments, revisions, deletions, additions you'd like to add to the plan?
The business plan. So, I do.
Mr. Meisner?
My first question is, this is kind of touchy. I don't want to offend Harry, but we are adopting this plan, and we've already adopted a new finance director. Which is appropriate to have in this?
Excuse me?
Well, this particular shows that the director of finance is Harry.
Yes. When the plan
Slash.
gets adopted, we'll change that.
Okay.
But as of April 5th, he is the finance director. But we'll make that note.
Am I still up, or are we rotating? This could be directed to Adam. One of the concerns, and I realize, do we approve the 2A projects already? We did so many things. Is that
Yeah,
whole
they're
list
part of
gonna-
the budget. We have a
Yeah.
list in the budget,
That's all
yes.
approved?
You've approved the list, but not the award of the bids yet.
I
They're
guess
under
my
design.
one question I just noticed here, I don't know why it didn't hit me before, but, and I've expressed this before, but we're doing 10th to 12th Street on Meadows. Is that not just north of Central?
Yes.
North of Harding, yes.
Harding? How many cars are on that street?
There are not very many. It's also at the end of the list for this year as far as budget is concerned, so if budget doesn't allow, we won't do it. The main reason it's on the list is because the road has been destroyed with water leaks. And so the thought was if we were going to go and tear it up with a new water main, that would be a good local project, low-hanging fruit, small cost to get it done.
Okay. I understand that. I
I
just,
mean, the water leaks have been bad enough in that road. It's, I mean, like I said, the surface is gone. If you want to go drive by it. But it is the low priority this year. So it'll be the last one that's picked.
and somebody else got a question, or can I go?
Jim, you're-
Going.
I don't care. We're going to cover the whole thing.
Okay, while we're page by paging, would you, Ms. Gonzalez, do you have a comment? Are you going to consent to go the page by page thing with everybody?
Well, I read through it,
Okay.
and I have questions that stuck out to me.
Would you go ahead then, please?
Okay. And they're not real big, but we talked about shade structures at
Yes.
Centennial Park
Yes.
previously. Where are we with that?
That's part of this year's program. They'll be in this summer.
I didn't see that in here,
Yeah.
so,
I
okay.
think we, yeah,
Okay,
they're listed.
okay, good.
No.
We ordered them, but we didn't get them on time before the season ended. So they're
They're on
out
their
there
way.
waiting to be installed.
Okay. And then with the golf course, we had talked about providing, or finding a way to provide raw water to them?
We've given them an option to do that. That's up to them.
It's up to them?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, this is just a personal thing.
Sure.
Utility billing, can we
Yeah.
set up an auto pay method? Is there a way to do that? Did you hear my question?
Not all of it.
Can we set up an auto pay method?
We have it with banking. You
With the
can- you
auto-
can-
with the
yeah, yeah.
utility?
Yeah, with the water utility. Mhm. We eat the cost. It's about $37,000 a year that the city eats
What do you mean by auto pay?
through your bank, electronic transfer.
No, I don't.
Are you talking
What do
about
you-
credit
what do you want?
cards?
If I can get
Oh.
automatically billed for my water bill?
Yeah.
Automatically debited to your
Yes,
account.
automatic debit for water bills.
We don't have that capability.
We don't have that.
We can look into it.
It'd save me
I'll find out.
about 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40,
$60.
$60 a year.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms.
We'll look
Turner?
into that.
Ms. Turner?
Okay.
Are you
My
done?
last
No,
one is
sorry.
that I do see that our public information officer is responding to questions and concerns routinely. I still get feedback from residents that the response rate from department heads is either not happening or that it's slow.
Well, if you could help identify where that's happening, because most of it goes through Denise, and she's very responsive. Questions come through her, but if there are cases, just let me know, and I'll certainly encourage people to get with it.
Okay.
Because we owe the public a quick response.
Yeah, okay. That was all I had.
Ms. Turner?
Well, if we want to go in order, I mean, I think I would be supportive of that, rather than
Okay.
jumping around with our
Yeah,
questions.
let's do that. Would you like to start then? Ben, and we'll just work this way.
My first question's not going to come until infrastructure investment,
Oh,
so I'll
okay.
defer.
You defer.
Oh, wow.
So let's start with discussions on the first part. Number one?
Which is economic development?
Yep. Was that the pleasure of council?
That's good. I'm good.
Fine.
I have a couple of things.
Yes, ma'am.
Under 2, I was wondering if we could add like a 2A where we're streamlining PUD and PDD process to make it easier and more business-friendly.
Yeah, we can identify that.
And under 4, about the riverfront zoning, should we put something in there about how we're also going to be designing, like, street, the
As far as the
infrastructure
infrastructure plan.
planning for the riverfront zoning?
We could plug that in. We were waiting, we have a meeting with the council, I believe, on May the 3rd to review that with you, so.
But that's part of our plan.
Yeah, we can plug that in there.
That we're
Yeah.
doing that, but also potentially creating business development incentives for developing future development investors
Sure.
there as well.
Any more on 2 or 1? Where are we at?
I do.
2? Comments on 2?
Public safety?
Public safety?
I have questions on public safety.
Yes, ma'am.
Under number 1, it talks about reducing the demand for substances, but I remember that police chief also said that he's working on reducing the supply of illegal substances as well. Do you know if that needed to be included?
Sure.
We also didn't make any mention of our new $500,000 state grant to address homelessness, drug abuse, and mental illness, nor our growing canine unit. And also that we're fostering a collaborative relationship with the prison wardens. That includes the canines, emergency planning, DOC employee appreciation, and a labor program.
Ms. Gonzalez, did you? No?
Are we pushing buttons, or are we?
Ms. Cochran, go right ahead.
Depends.
We talked about, on 7, there's technology upgrades. Do we need to maybe just throw in that we're purchasing new vehicles in the fleet?
Well, we wouldn't consider that technology, but body cameras, clearly, that's, in our opinion, the new technology. The cars are just operational necessities, but the body cameras are definitely a new technology that will replace a dated one, which is the in-car cameras.
Are we through with public safety? Mr. Meisner?
No. Number 8, I don't know that it falls under that, but another subject I think that Adam's going to be working on, the school thing. There's some statements in there, I think, that stated that there's an issue with speeding that doesn't seem to get corrected through that zone with complaints happening. Isn't there something in there, Adam, about that? Wasn't that in that
It's
section?
under traffic.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but, I mean, in the school project thing. it talked
Oh,
about-
that'd be under infrastructure.
Yeah, the calming of the
Calming
bumpers.
devices, things of
Yeah.
that nature.
Yeah,
but
that's
there
under
was some-
infrastructure.
There was some statements in there about that the police department had been contacted and nothing's ever happened about reducing, trying to police that speed through that
Through school zones. We can add that in there.
So just trying to get some school zone speed issues, however you're going to word that.
Well, they'll slow down this summer with those bulldozers in there.
Not necessarily.
Okay. All right, public safety, we're going to move on to the next one. Comments on that?
Turner?
Ms. Turner?
Thank you. Adam, could you remind me, what gravel streets are we going to pave with this year's funds?
So we're not going to pave any this year.
None.
So
Oh,
still
okay.
remain,
So we're
still
deferring till next
Still to be
year.
done this year is to
Uh-huh.
pick a project and design it.
Okay.
And then last year will be our last funding year for that type of project.
So we're going to do it in 2020 then? We'll
No,
pave or no?
Yes, our goal will be to pave in 2020, yes.
Okay, so this year
Yes.
we'll pick projects.
Yes. So
Okay.
at some point in the near future, we'll bring you an opinion of what we think we should pave, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so probably that will be in the next couple months, I would
Yes.
assume. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Unless, does the council have a particular street or streets that you want us to really look at for this funding?
Got extra money in my driveway.
Well, I know that we've heard from
George Turner.
Well,
Yeah.
and
The
Dennis.
road is just too long.
Dennis also has come to us.
That-
Yeah.
The monies will never cover that entire road.
Water Street, is that what it was? Water?
Vine.
Vine.
Can we do
Vine.
part of it?
Yeah, I guess you could.
I mean, if
There's-
we don't have a
Yeah.
street, why
Well,
not
I
do part
think
of
we
it?
need to probably have another
But we-
opportunity to have a broad discussion about
Yeah.
that, because there's probably lots of
There's-
streets to consider in that conversation.
There are actually, I think, many. Still, we still have
Yeah.
a lot of
Mr.
unpaved streets in
Hamrick?
town, so.
Sorry. Mr. Hammer?
So under the infrastructure investment, I didn't see anything here for 12th Street. Was there supposed to be, are we doing something on 12th Street in 2019?
Yeah.
It says 12th
It's
Street,
right there,
College to
12
Royal
Main
Gorge.
Street.
Sorry, okay.
Yeah.
12th Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Avenue to Royal Gorge. And just an observation, I just thought of this myself here yesterday, but the middle school is undertaking a pretty major building program there. It seems to me that we probably should have asked them, it's kind of water under the bridge now, I think. We probably should have asked them if there wasn't some way that they could give us some more property for street width there to help with some of the restrictions that we've got with the configuration of the streets as they exist. That it seemed to me there would be a win-win solution there, where we could make a wider street that would have better parking, better traffic flow, but it's probably too late.
Yeah. We are coordinating with them fairly closely on their project and our project, but yeah.
Mr. Meisner?
Item 19.
Oh, no.
Why don't we just
How many
scrap
years
that
has that been on
project?
there? Yeah.
No, you just got to shoot me. We're scheduled to have this completed by the end of the third quarter. Or I'll give you the right to line me up.
Ooh, that's on public record.
Can apply your Second Amendment rights on me.
Oh,
Ms. Smith?
Just a couple quick things. The picture of the Centennial Park Master Plan, the city council's revised that plan, and I think this picture needs to reflect that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, good
also,
point. I noticed that.
and also, in 2018, the city council approved matching grant funds at Mountain View Park to level out the north field at Mountain View Park. And in conversations with you and Rex, we talked that probably have to be benchmarked in 2019 and 2020.
Yeah.
Should that be reflected as a infrastructure
The
improvement?
vast majority of the costs will be incurred in 2020. They received a $17,500 grant. All that money we use this year, but the vast majority, the other $55,000 for the project, we'll be using for 2020. But we could certainly cite the $17,000 worth we'll get an issue. That's mainly the grading work, the fill work, but the majority of the expense will be the replacement of the grass and grass in the topsoil for the following year.
I think it'd be prudent to add that
We'll
so
put-
that
we'll plug
we're
that in
working
there.
on that.
Ms. Gonzalez?
so kind of lines up with number 9, but Tony, you and I have talked about putting in some kind of bike lane or some kind of safe
Striping. painting.
striping for bicycles along College. Could that be inserted in number 9 somehow?
Well, we haven't budgeted for it. Actually, I've talked to Adam about that. We think it's a great idea. We're looking at the cost. I've done this elsewhere. The cost of the paint is extremely expensive. So we're just trying to get a handle on what that might cost.
Okay, the bike lanes that are in Pueblo along, is that Elizabeth? Those are not painted all the way through, I don't think. I think they're just
I'm not
stripes, and
familiar.
then they have,
Yeah, it's probably
Yeah.
something, we haven't adopted bicycle plan. We probably need to revisit that and
Yeah.
resurrect that and take a look at that.
I think with the road resurfacing and the new school going in, it might be a good time to,
At least look at a design and cost profile for what that would be.
okay.
Because you're talking about a lane that is painted, whether
Yes.
it be blue or green, and I've done this.
Not the whole
elsewhere.
lane, but, maybe just stripes.
Lane
and then-
boundaries.
Yeah, lane boundaries, and then, and maybe just
Well, that's less
symbols
expensive.
of
Yeah, that's less
bicycles,
expensive.
you know, every
Yeah.
so 100 yards
Yeah.
or whatever.
Though we do like the idea, though it's more expensive, especially on College Avenue with the schools there. A completely painted lane, it really pops. And because otherwise, you'll find people, even in normal bike lanes, they'll park in those lanes, there'll be obstructions in the lanes, they just don't seem to give it the credit it's due versus when you have a lane completely painted, it's very obvious you're not supposed to be in it.
Well, my
unless you're a
concern
bicycle.
with it is that
Yeah.
kids are not allowed to ride their bikes on the sidewalks, they're not allowed to ride.
But right on the street, that would be the intent.
Yes.
Give them a safe,
So, yeah,
secure.
that's my intent,
Yeah.
is to.
We'll
is
we'll
to
do some more
create
costs
something safe.
and bring it back to you guys.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Turner?
I'd just like to express my support for Adam's idea that we should revisit the bicycle plan throughout the city. And I understand it could be expensive to entirely paint a lane, but maybe we have to start somewhere with just lane boundaries. And I think that we need to make progress in that area.
And that Atkins that we're hiring to do the pedestrian study did mention that they did
Saw that.
a cycling
Yeah.
study too, and so
Yes.
that would, sounds like good timing for all that.
Okay, Mr. Meisner?
Well, in your bicycle plan, I at least suggest you visit some cities that have implemented them and are now taking them out. I mean, it makes sense for some streets, but for some streets, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Which will be good
Okay.
conversation for that plan.
Mr. Arquez?
Going in on what Mr. Meiser said, you know, I go to Pueblo at least once a month for doctor appointments, and I have yet to see people riding a bike on a lot of those bicycle lanes that they spend all that money on to paint them, put the bicycle sign, put other signs, you know, share the road and all that. So I'm not saying we don't need to look at it, but I'm saying when we look at it, let's really look at it with this potential use. And I like I say, once a month, I'm in Pueblo for a doctor's appointment, and I have never seen a bicycle person. The main Elizabeth, they had them on 5th Street. They've had them other places, and I've never seen them. So I just say let's be cautious when we decide to do the project. I'm not saying let's not do it, but let's be cautious.
Sure, it's not funded for this year anyway, so I think what we'd put in there is that we revisit the study and the plan that we have and go from there.
Yeah, but like Dawn's idea, start with a pilot project like College Avenue would make a lot of sense.
I think it would be,
Use that as a beta test.
I think it would be useful along college,
With
just
all the
for.
kids there.
Well, maybe, Frank, it's because they knew you were coming down there, too. I mean, I'll just throw that out.
Yeah.
So, okay, next section. What is that next section here? I'm losing it.
Attractive.
Attractive? Environment,
Built environment.
built environment, right. Any comments on that, inclusions, corrections?
Just get the monument signs built.
I have a comment.
Mr. Meisner pushed first, sorry.
My first comment would be some kind of statement by the administrator on item number 1.
I think we've made it pretty clear, it better be done by the end of the third quarter.
Okay. You're committing to that.
Yes.
Okay,
Because we agree with you, it's grossly overdue.
okay. Ms. Smith?
Are there plans in the year 2019 to take down Gus's property and create a plan for that piece of property? Because that is an attractive built environment project.
That's a good point.
That's a good point. Again, we've scheduled, I think, the other meeting in May to just talk about the Constantino property.
April
and what
3rd.
your plans are. So it's hard for us to give you an estimate until we know exactly what you want. We know from some of you what some of the basic elements should be, but I think once we get a better definition, we can revise the plan to reflect that.
Yeah, so that, yeah, but either way, it's coming down,
It's
so.
some sort of
Yeah, there's
just
gonna be a
project
plan.
improvement.
And we've talked several times about having a project to rebuild or revamp abandoned homes and/or mobile homes, and possibly creating more affordable housing with that, but it's never really gone anywhere. And we've talked about wanting to pursue that more. So I don't know if we wanted to add that into our
Sure. Well, we've been
intentions for the business
fortunate,
plan.
Dave, as you know, when we first started looking at this, we thought the city would have to take more aggressive action, but the private sector has really responded well. I know this past year, I think we had 9 homes that were abandoned, the private sector converted. So we've had to be less involved because the private sector has stepped up to do the job. So we'll continue to encourage that and look for those opportunities where the city may be the only resource to get something moving.
Well, and maybe a different way is that I know Kansas City High School is really interested in participating
Yeah.
in that, and so that might be something we want to look at.
Any more in the built environment? Next section. Opportunities. I don't see a flurry of lights here, so thank you.
Where are we?
Opportunities, is that the next one?
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Meisner, quit punching at that and answer. Go.
Oh, my light's on. Jeez.
Finally. But no one's.
Yeah, no kidding.
Ooh, it's getting rough.
Wow, that hurt. Good thing there's nobody here. I'm going to say this, and I probably shouldn't, but how much more are we going to spend on the red house?
That's all grant.
It's grant money
All of it?
and donations.
Yeah.
The city's not spending anything on the Red House this year.
But
Lisa
is
did a
there
really
state
good job of
grants?
securing that grant.
She's amazing.
We're not going to spend anything. That's the answer.
Okay, any other comments on opportunities?
Well, I just have one.
Mr. Turner?
When do we think we're going to resurface those roads in our city parks, the mountain parks?
I didn't catch the end of the question.
When are we going to have the roads redone in the mountain parks? Will that be early
Within the
in
next,
the
they'll
year?
start this month.
Oh, they will?
Yeah,
Completed by
yeah,
June or something.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
done
Yeah.
by summer.
Yeah, you just approved the award, so they'll be probably out there within a week mobilizing.
Good.
Big trucks with more on the side.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments on opportunities? Public trust, is that the next one? Comments on that?
We will plug in Dolly's remark regarding utility billing. We'll look into the auto billing that she requested.
Okay. Mr. Meisner?
This is off subject, but could we get these buttons fixed?
Yeah, they don't.
Are they getting
This
stuck?
system looks good, but functionality is not real good.
Is yours plugged in? Everybody else's, but yours is,
You
Jim.
push the button and there's a pause before the light comes
Well,
on.
my pause is real
All right.
long.
Real
Okay,
long.
we'll look at that.
They'll work on that. Okay.
The employee survey, has that been, where are we at with formulating those questions?
Those are standardized questions that we ask, the same questions every year, and we usually conduct the survey in late spring, early summer.
Is it possible that we could have some different type of questions on there?
Yeah. If you want to submit some questions, sure.
Okay. And then on number 7, which I think Miss Amanda talked about, but it would be nice, I think, maybe, if we had a really simple report showing, I mean, I have no idea what those complaints are that come in that get responded to.
Yeah, we can provide that too.
You know, just a quickie little report in our
Sure.
weekly thing that says,
Yeah,
these are the calls that came in and complaining about
Sure.
this.
we can do like a little weekly report.
I don't care.
And
Council
also
wants monthly.
compliments.
Huh?
Compliments, too.
Compliments.
We'll call
For the mayor.
ourselves.
Yes, will be accepted, of course. All right, any more comments on that public trust? We're moving on to the next one. If that's it, then that's it.
So we'll make these changes and then bring them back for the April 1st meeting.
Okay, I was wondering why Adam was still here. We probably should have confronted this earlier. Let's go to number 11, Main Street Safety Improvements Intergovernmental Agreement. Mr. Lancaster.
Sure. So this is an IGA with CDOT to use federal grant dollars for the safety improvements that we've talked about before there near the middle school on Main Street. This work will be done in conjunction with the water main replacement and also the 2A street reconstruction. Because of the color of this money, it'll be bid separately and constructed separately, but coordinated and concurrent with both the water line work and the 2A work. It's a $200,000 grant with a $40,000 local match.
Any comments or questions from Mr. Lancaster? Lancaster? Mr. Meisner, I'll just keep naming you, so keep talking.
Whatever, Mr. Mayor. I just want to communicate, we had the issue about the curb extensions, and we had a redesign that we looked at that I thought was proposed for downtown that had something like a $70,000 bill attached to it per intersection or something, that council declined to move forward with that. But I didn't realize that that design is the design that we're going to use apparently on 12th Street. Is that
Yes.
correct?
If you recall, you rejected the design last year.
Right.
This is its replacement based upon council input.
But we haven't seen it.
Yeah, you saw it back in August. We can provide it to you again. I've got the date and.
Yeah, in August of 18, we had a special meeting to discuss it because we were at the brink of losing the grant dollars.
Yeah.
Okay.
And at
So we
that
did-
time,
So I did see it.
yeah, so we
Yeah,
brought
we'll-
you back, what we brought you was a 4-foot wider section,
Yeah.
pulling the radiuses back, giving it a bigger turning radius.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that was approved by you guys in August of last year, so
Okay.
Yeah.
that's the design we took to CDOT.
Got it.
And our thought process was, once that is built this summer, give us your feedback. Hopefully you'll love it, since it's your design, and then we could consider
It's
doing.
not my design, it's
s-
his
uh,
design.
You guys had some good suggestions. That's why we modified it. You should enjoy the credit. But based upon that, if you like it, it's certainly something that would be applicable to the Main Street intersections. And then we could tell you what that was going to cost. In fact, I think Adam's already had some cost analysis on that, but we'll wait to see what you think of it first before we bring it back up at budget time.
Any comments on that? On the IGA?
Well, where's the parallel? And I'm trying to remember some of that stuff, but where's the parallel going to be? Right next to the intersection or all the way down the street, or?
Not sure what you're asking.
No, it would be right in front of, you know how,
Talking about the parking?
what is, it's a little flower shop now.
Yeah.
Pedal pushers. It would be right there, right? On 12th Street?
I don't know what he's asking about.
Well,
Well,
it
right
says
now
the
it's-
parking would be changed from angle to parallel.
From
Yeah.
parallel to, from parallel to angled.
Tangle, yeah.
Did I say it wrong?
Oh,
It does
well,
say-
okay, it's backwards. I mean, it's not, I read
No,
it
change to angle from parallel.
back- Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to be adding a lot of parking spaces.
Okay, Frank?
I just want to thank Adam, and, I was one of the ones at the back that objected to the way we had it set up at the first time, and you guys went back and got it taken care of so we didn't lose that money from CDOT, which is very important. So I appreciate the work that you folks did to accommodate some of the negatives we had at the onset to come up with something positive and not lose that money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Okay, then, no more questions. If there are no more questions, I'm going to ask for a motion and a second. Would someone like to make that motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Gonzalez? Ms.
I make a
Gonzalez?
motion that we approve the Main Street Safety Improvements IGA.
Second.
Second. Thank you. Made in second. Any discussion on that motion? Would you call roll, please?
Councilmember Cochran? Aye. Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Turner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Unanimously carried.
Okay, let's move on to item number 13. Consideration and adoption by title only of Resolution Number 9, Series 2019, entitled "A Resolution of the City of Council of Canyon City, Colorado, approving the First Amendment to City Administrator Employment Agreement." City Administrators Employment Agreement. And I think we have discussed that, but if you would care to discuss it more, you can do that. No?
Nothing else to add other than tying me to the stake on the wayfinding and the monument signs.
And we will, no. Any questions of council on that to the staff? Does everybody know what we're talking about? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, could I entertain a motion in a second? On number 13. Mr. Meisner?
Mr. Mayor, council, I move that we approve Resolution 9, Series of 2019.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Gonzalez, thank you. Second. Any discussions on that motion? Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Cochran? Aye. Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Turner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Unanimously carried.
Thank you. Moving on to number 14, consideration of municipal code update pertaining to stormwater drainage easements. Ordinance number 7, series 2019 for introduction and first reading by title only, entitled an ordinance of the City of Canyon City amending section 15.04.030, section 15.06.030, and chapter 17.20 of the Canyon City Municipal Code concerning issuance of building permits and drainage and stormwater easements. I guess, Mr. Lancaster, I guess you could handle that.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So you may recall, back in January, staff was directed to come up with some language to protect existing drainage ways when there is a land development application made. And so some of that had been rolled back in recent years. We went back and took a look at that, and we came up with language that was acceptable to you, that we took to the Planning Commission. They adopted it, their language, to change the subdivision development regulations in February. They did make 2 changes that staff feels were good changes to make. And so those are redlined in the memo to you, where it talks about whether the drainage channel should be landscaped. Stabilized is what we changed that term to instead of landscaped, to alleviate the concern that there was some idea that it would have to be, like a turf lawn, so to speak, where the intent is really that it be stabilized. And then the other was, rather than have the vague description of maximum potential flow, we changed that to the 1% annual chance historic flow for the storm event. So there's some criteria to base that size on. And so in front of you today is an ordinance then that makes this effective for Chapter 17 as well as 15 for building permit applications.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions of council? Mr. Meisner?
My only concern is the 1% chance, 1% annual chance historic flow.
Yes.
I mean, is it possible that there could be on an undeveloped piece, a very small drainage that naturally exists, but that small drainage doesn't have the capacity to reach the 1% annual, and then you're winding up having to make this expansion? Or is that what we're wanting? Did I make sense?
The 1% is the 100-year storm.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
So that's a big storm.
We just had Denver.
I mean,
Did my question make sense?
yeah, it does.
You know what I'm saying? Somebody could wind up having to come in and create a 100-year drainage when it wasn't there to start with, but it was a drainage.
Right.
But is that what we
So
want?
the language does say whenever possible. So it's not
Yeah.
thou shalt, but it's whenever possible.
Right, so we're not going to, so for example, somebody's entire lot could be,
Right.
have a drainage flow across it. And then that's not where Mr. Hamrick's talking about, not possible to create a channel at that state.
Okay, Ms. Smith?
So when I read stabilized, my question was, does that mean it needs to be concrete stabilized or just rocks, or what is the?
Well, stabilized, we
definition of
have, we have a term for that within our drainage regulations. And so essentially, it could be either vegetated, rocked, concrete. There's a whole list of ways you can stabilize.
And why was it chosen to have the 1% annual chance historic flow? Like the 100-year, that's pretty high standard.
Sure, because that's what we use for our other standards within the regulations for development of facilities. That's kind of the gold standard.
We just chose the 5 to kind of get down to a reasonable dollar. I think I know where you're coming from with the stormwater.
Yeah, I'm just like, does every single property have to have
Well, it was a cost
stormwater
thing.
management for?
Yeah.
Where Ms. Smith was going is that I think, when we were doing the stormwater, we initially started with, I think, the 100.
Yeah.
And that dictates a certain size, and we're saying, we don't have the dollars for that. Let's roll that back to a storm size that we can afford. And then was it 5-year?
Well, keep in mind, we're not asking anybody to build anything here. So this is preservation unless they mitigate. So this is someone who has a piece of property that already has a channel on it that already there's a prescriptive right that people are flowing across. We're just defining where that is and putting a deed to that.
Okay.
Yep, kind of an easement, license, whatever.
Right.
Any other questions of Ms. Lancaster? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 7, series 2019.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion on that motion? Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Cochran?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Turner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Hi.
Unanimously carried.
Okay, we're going to do number 15. Is authorize the mayor to sign a one-year agreement for financial and in-kind support between the city and Fremont Center of the Arts in an amount not to exceed $43,245. Could we have a staff report or discussion?
Yes, based upon our last meeting, we have now memorialized in an agreement the conditions that we spoke of 2 weeks ago. Those conditions have been approved by the Fremont Center for the Arts. So nothing has really changed from 2 weeks ago. It's just now memorialized in an agreement, and we're thrilled, and we'll start meeting with them immediately. In fact, we have a meeting scheduled for Wednesday to get this rolling and provide the support they need, hopefully to expand their programming and overall success and continue to grow and prosper in the community.
Okay, Ms. Turner.
I just want to thank everyone on council for support of the Arts Center. When I met with them last week and we voted to approve this agreement, everyone's very excited. And thank you for the folks in the city who helped the Arts Center broker the deal to sell the building. That's going to ensure it's the Center for the Arts success for hopefully the next 40 or 50 years, the way they have been. So they are very grateful, and I just wanted to pass that message along to everyone.
Well, thank you. Mr. Meisner.
Tony, you got marketing manager?
Yes.
Is that an actual title for somebody?
Yes, for Christie, yes. Yes.
Ms. Smith?
I just want to make a quick comment that last week, the Fremont Center for the Arts hosted their first event, and it was very lovely and well done. And a number of people said that's the first time that they have set foot in the old post office in years and didn't realize what a nice art center it was. And so I think this will be really nice.
Yeah, we were both there. That it was very well done. Food was great. It was laid out nice. I can just see doing things in that building now. So that is exciting, and I have to thank Ms. Turner as well for
Absolutely.
persevering on that. So, okay, any more questions? If not, I entertain a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve your signature on this agreement with the Fine Arts Center.
Second.
Second, Ms. Turner, thank you. Any discussions on the motion? Would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Cochran? Aye. Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Turner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Unanimously carried.
Okay, Adam, I had, before Christmas, the gentleman from CDOT wanted to come over and talk to me. I said, sure. And we had a nice, long discussion, and he said, what could we do to maybe get a better relationship? And you probably know about this. I don't know. And I said, well, probably if you move the light there on Orchard, because there's a lot of problems there. And he called me the other day and said, we're going to move it. And that's what they're doing out there. They're going to move the Orchard light away from, so you can make that turn better. And that might help. And then I said, well, we have a lot of potholes on Fremont Drive and Rainbow. And they said, that's yours. I said, no, that's yours. And I got a call back from the guy. I said, you're right, it's ours. We'll take care of it. So I appreciated that. So that light's going to be moved, I suppose. So, thank you, Adam, thank you all.
What do you mean it's going to be
Reserve.
moved?
They're going to move it. You know, when you turn the corner, you can hardly get around it on Orchard and Highway 50 there in front of the bank. You see I hit it all the time? They're going to move it back so that you can get around it better.